Perfect. We are ready to go.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the City of St. Helena regular City Council meeting, Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. I'm going to hand it back to Cindy to walk us through our remote process and our Spanish language interpretation.
So public participation can be made by calling in. You would dial 669-900-6833. At the prompt, you enter the meeting ID, which is 828-0847-7032. You would press the pound key, and then during public comment, you would press *9 to speak. Oops. Tonight's meeting will have live Spanish interpretation. To access the interpretation, you will need to use the Zoom application from either your cell phone, tablet, or computer. Instructions on how to use the Zoom app are listed in English and Spanish on the agenda posted on the city's website. Once you join the meeting from the Zoom application, you will see a small globe at the bottom or top of the screen. Click on the globe and you will be able to access the live interpretations. Claudia and Cedar are our interpreters this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move now to our Pledge of Allegiance. If folks would place your hand on your heart, put on your mute and follow with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we'll move now to our roll call, please.
Mayor Ellsworth.
Here.
Vice Mayor Doreen.
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Hardy.
Here.
Chateau.
Here.
Very good. Thank you. We'll move to our adoption of the agenda. I'll call on the city clerk to see if there are any agenda updates.
Mr. Mayor, there's no agenda updates. However, I did want to announce that this evening, the meeting video is not working for channel 28. The meeting is live streamed with video and audio on the city's website. There is audio, and Napa TV is working on the video end. That's all I have to report.
Very good. Thank you. And so with that, I would ask for a motion to adopt the agenda, for adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Chateau?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Hardy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doreen?
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth?
Yes. Okay, we'll move now to public forum. This is where members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public forum. Each person's comments shall be limited to 4 minutes. Each person is entitled to speak on any non-agendized item only once at any meeting. Brief questions by council members for clarifications may be posed and answered, and council members may make requests that items be placed on future agendas, but in accordance with state law, no substantive discussion or action may take place unless and until the matter properly appears on the agenda. I'll open it now for public comment, and I'll look to our city clerk to see if we have public comment.
I see a hand raised. Larry, you're able to unmute yourself and address the council. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. This is Larry Vermeulen. During the course of my research into Picasso LLC's operations, I discovered that in many cases, an accessory dwelling unit, ADU, or junior accessory dwelling unit, JADU, has been created during the upgrade of the home fractional vacation home ownership. Since these ADUs will never be rented, the effect of this is simply to add another bedroom to the home and thus increase its value. This is an egregious misuse of the ADU regulations. As you're probably aware, a number of bills were passed during the 2019-2020 sessions of the state legislature to streamline the ADU permit process. The findings section of the California Government Code pertaining to ADU says, among other things, accessory dwelling units are a valuable form of housing in California. California faces a severe housing crisis. Accessory dwelling units provide housing for family members, students, the elderly, in-home health care providers, the disabled, and others at below market prices within existing neighborhoods. And accessory dwelling units offer low-cost housing to meet the needs of existing and future residents within existing neighborhoods. So it's clear from the findings that the intent of the relaxed regulations for permitting of ADUs is to create more opportunities for renters of moderate means. Unfortunately, nowhere in the legislation is there a clear mandate that ADUs be used for this purpose. It would appear that many of the ADUs created in St. Helena are simply serving as guest houses. And in the case of Belle Maison, Picasso's chosen developer, the purpose of the ADUs appears to be to add an additional bedroom to the vacation house. This is such an egregious misuse of the code that it must not go unchallenged. While there's nothing specifically in state code that requires that ADUs be rented, the code does require that a JADU be rented for longer than 30 days. It will be interesting to see how Picasso plans to adhere to that requirement under their fractional ownership model with their Kearney Street home, for which the JADU permit was obtained. St. Helena has its own ADU regulations, which are found in Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code. In most cases, the St. Helena regulations mirror those of the state, but as is our right under state legislation, St. Helena's code contains some additional provisions. Among them, a deed restriction. The regulation says, prior to issuance of a building permit for an ADU or JADU, a deed restriction must be recorded against the title of the property in the county recorder's office and a copy filed with the director. The deed restriction must run with the land and bind all future owners. The form of the deed restriction will be provided by the city. And income reporting, which says, in order to facilitate the city obligation to identify adequate sites for housing in accordance with government code, the following requirements must be satisfied. A, with the building permit application, the applicant must provide the city with an estimate of the projected annualized rent that will be charged for the ADU or JADU. And B, within 90 days after each yearly anniversary of the issuance of the building permit, the owner must report the actual rent charged for the ADU or JADU during the prior year. However, when I requested a copy of the deed restrictions and income reports from the city staff, I was told they were required neither. It's perplexing to me that the city would not enforce provisions of its own code designed to ensure that ADUs are used as intended. At a time when we're all keenly aware of the shortage of workforce housing in our community, for us to ignore the provisions of our own regulations designed to address that shortage is inexplicable. To further allow the code to be misused for the benefit of developers to add bedrooms and convert our neighborhood homes into vacation homes is inexcusable. I request the City Council investigate this matter further. Thank you.
Thank you for the public comment. Cindy, is there additional public comment?
There is. Pat, I'm going to allow you to speak and you can unmute yourself and address the council.
Good evening, Mayor Ellsworth, City Council members and staff. This is Pat Dell. I'm coming in tonight to request that you appoint an ad hoc committee for people in Vineyard Valley to deal with emergency preparedness, particularly fires. The reason I'm requesting this is that when a city manager has referred to communicating with Vineyard Valley, he refers to precisely that, Vineyard Valley. And we don't know if he's talking about owners, management, or some people who live here. I've been told by one person that there is a committee. That person didn't know who applied, who appointed the committee members. I've been told by another individual that that person is handling it pretty much alone. Very important to have transparency in relationships between city government and any kind of group in the city. And those of us who aren't privy to who this committee really is, if there is one, or who appointed it, feel like that transparency is very clouded. Now, I know that you're short of staff. I understand that. And an ad hoc committee doesn't require an agenda and it doesn't require any notes. It does require a staff member. So I'm requesting that you do this, and furthermore, that you, I think right now on this loosely formed committee, there are 4 people. I suggest that you increase that to 5 or 6. I also request that you have meetings with that ad hoc committee, either on Zoom or in a public place that we can access with masks and using social distancing. That could be the firehouse. That could be the clubhouse at Vineyard Valley. But I think it's very important to do this to prevent misunderstandings. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the public comment. Is there additional public comment? Oh, Cindy, are you muted?
Nancy, you can unmute yourself and address the council.
I think I'm unmuted, am I?
Yes, you are.
No, we can hear you now.
Okay, good evening, council and staff. I think that it's noteworthy when we're thinking about city revenue to recognize that over the last 12 months, hotel occupancy rates have plummeted to an average of 14%. So they're naturally generating practically no transient occupancy tax. Meanwhile, our retail sector has been remarkably strong, with food, wine, and home improvement being heavy hitting categories. The resiliency of retail is at least based on 2 things. First is the fact that the everyday resident often wants or needs something, whether there's a pandemic or fires or anything else, so we shop. And second is the flexibility retail enjoys in that they can pivot to online shopping or shipping or curbside pickup or even local home deliveries. There's just a really good variety of ways for the retail merchant to connect with the community and keep their businesses going. And while it is true that we lost some businesses over this last year and a half, the majority were able to hang in there, and we've actually added 2 new businesses on Adams Street over by the roastery, one being an antique store and the other one being what appears to be a high-end women's clothing shop. So considering the large percentage of the revenue pie held by retail, it seems prudent that we do all we can to support that sector. And one big glaring need is for parking. We have literally thousands of people driving through this town every single day, not as much when we were in quarantine, but apart from that, thousands. And if you can't park, the majority are not going to keep circling a block in hopes of getting into a parking space. I think we are losing a lot of tax revenue because we have failed to create easily accessible parking. So the other thing obviously are the empty storefronts. And so I'm encouraging you guys, why not focus on a remedy for the parking shortage and also start thinking of some creative ways to incentivize the commercial owners who are holding out for apparently for really exorbitant rents. And there are 2 ways to go. I mean, there's probably more than 2, but the 2 obvious are devise some kind of a penalty to make it more worth their while to do something, or create a reward system, give them some kind of breaks or something that would, tickle their fancy and help move them forward to lease those storefronts out. So I really want to encourage you guys to try and focus on those 2 areas, because retail is a huge, huge thing for us. And I have a little slogan that I'm going to lay on you in my little closing thing here. And that is, while hotel occupancy rates are dropping, St. Helena's keep on shopping. That's it. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you for the public comment. We'll Cindy, are we seeing any more public comment?
There is no more public comment, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Then I will bring it back to the council and reports by staff and city council, future agenda items and AB 1234 reports. This is reports by staff and or city councils on members of general interest, and brief questions for clarification may be posed and answered, and council members may request that items be placed on a future agenda, except under certain circumstances. The Brown Act prohibits any other discussion or action by the city council. So we'll start with city staff and start with the city attorney and reporting out on our closed session, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have no report other than to note that we did have a special closed session prior to this meeting on performance evaluation for the city manager, and there is no reportable action from that closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move now to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to touch on just 3 items tonight. The first is COVID. The Napa County remains in the orange tier. We're very, very close to the yellow tier. And with the governor now announcing a new plan for transitioning beyond the blueprint, this would take effect on June 15th. And all sectors defined as any activity or business type, are going to return to usual operations after June 15th. So a lot of changes coming statewide. There will be limited exceptions for mega events. These are going to be large concerts, things like that. There are different rules that will apply indoor versus outdoor. So just know there are some exceptions. There will also be a guidance we will likely be referred to the State Department of Public Health and the federal CDC for additional guidance moving forward. There's more information at the state website, covid19.ca.gov. And locally on the COVID front, we do expect the next vaccine clinic will be at St. Helena High School on June 3rd and 4th from 4 to 8 p.m. And as we learn more details, we'll share those. On the water conservation front, we're going to deploy the broken record strategy from this meeting forward, and you've heard this recently as well. And it will likely be more than one of us each meeting, but our collective efforts to reduce outdoor irrigation this summer are some of the key strategies on how we're going to help navigate through this water emergency. We're in a phase 2 water emergency now. It's critical that we conserve this summer. We want to work together at avoiding a phase 3 emergency. And finally, I want to invite our Human Resources and IT, Information Technology Director, to join us. And I think she's on the call, and I see Kathy waving to us now. This is Kathy's last meeting. She has worked for the city almost 11 years. And remarkably, she is retiring on the same date, 11 years to the day after she started with us on June 7th, 2010. She retires on June 7th this next month. I've had the privilege of working side by side with Kathy on some key projects over the last 4 years. We've shared a lot of long hours negotiating labor contracts. Kathy was stewarding our full compensation analysis study over the last year and a half that we implemented last year. She assisted with emergency labor discussions last March and April and May when we first were dealt this COVID pandemic. And she worked on an employee handbook that hadn't been fully updated for about 15 years that the council adopted this past year. So she's been involved in a lot of very important projects. We're going to miss her. And Kathy, I understand you have a box of sorts or a bag of something we're going to open tonight. There we go. We're going to open this live for everyone. And I'm going to read an inscription that I believe is on there.
I was told not to open it till now. So I was very good.
We want the live reaction.
Aw.
I'll have to show it to all of us. And there's an inscription on this that says, "In appreciation of your dedication, leadership, and outstanding service to the city of St. Helena, June 7th, 2010 to June 7th, 2021. Kathy's retiring, and Kathy, we wish you all the best.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and my honor to serve the city of St. Helena, the community, and especially the employees for the last 11 years. And I wish everybody the best.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much for all you've put forward for our community and been here through so much. We owe you a deep thanks and gratitude. So thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. We'll now move to our finance director, Dr. Mitz, and I'm hoping we hear a little bit more about this GFOA award.
Yes, you definitely will be, but I'm going to start just kind of echoing what Mark said about water conservation, and you'll be hearing a lot about it. Our marketing efforts are firming up right now, so we're going to start seeing at least 3 social media postings a week plus press releases, and we are in the process of making some lawn signs. So as soon as they are in, we will let everybody know that they're available. But here is what the lawn sign is going to look like. It is gold is the new green. And so as soon as those are available, we will have them over at City Hall, and we'll make sure that we get the word out for the water conservation. I'll stop sharing my screen so then you can't see my big mess of notes up here. As Mayor Ellsworth indicated, the GFOA award, the city was notified last week from the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, that the city of St. Helena has received GFOA's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for its fiscal year 2021 budget. I want to say it was an amazing feat to get that in, because not only do we have to get the budget document done, there's a lot of legwork on the back end and applications you have to complete. With the COVID, the fires, TSPS, we didn't know if we were going to get it done, and we did. So myself and Finance Manager Mandy Kellogg were elated when we received this notice last week. The award itself, it does reflect the commitment of the governing body and staff to meet the highest principles of government budgeting. And the award process is we are ranked by 3 different independent raters from throughout the United States, and they have different categories, and you have to rank in a certain level by all three raters in order for you to get the award. So this is the 2nd year in a row that we've applied for the award, and the 2nd year in a row that we've received it. So I am very happy for that accomplishment, and thank you for all of your support in building this budget document and all of the staff members' support. And on the lines of budget, just a reminder, we are having our 2nd budget workshop meeting this Thursday. It is via Zoom from 9 o'clock and scheduled through noon. There's 3 topics we are going to be hitting on Thursday. It is the water side, the wastewater fund side, and then also we are going to be talking about the CIP project list, the draft CIP project list. We do have a water advisory board meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. again via Zoom, and this is their first meeting where they're actually going to make a determination on an exception request. So this is our first meeting that we're getting the ball rolling as far as their role serving the city council. And then I do also want to let everybody know that water allocation letters have been mailed out for both residential and non-residential customers. So what this letter will do, it will tell you what your allocation is for June. For the residential customers, that allocation will carry you through all the way through October because it's a summer allocation. So it will tell you what your allocation is for all the summer months through October, and then it will give you a comparison of what water you used in June of 2019. So that way residents can actually gauge where they were in 2019 versus what their actual allotment is. For the non-residential customers, it will show what their June allotment is. And then following up in the next couple of weeks, we're actually going to be sending out a follow-up email to the commercial customers that will show them month by month what their allocation is for an entire year based on their average 3-year use from 17, 18, 19, less 10%. So it is a lot of information. We are working fast and furious to get things out there, but we are definitely available to answer any questions. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council? Thank you for that report. And again, great work by the finance department and in receiving that award and all the work done over this last year. So thank you. We'll move now to our city clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Finance Director Mitz just announced about the meeting tomorrow for the Water Advisory Board, if you would like to sign up to receive those e-agendas, you can do so on the website, or you can always give me a call and I can walk you through. I'm also accepting applications for all boards, committees, and commissions. So please visit our website and you can, or call me and I can help you or assist with applying. Thank you.
Thank you. And for Public Works, Mr. Wenger.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. And at the risk of sounding like a skipping record, I too am going to chime in and say that it is all about water right now. We are monitoring things very closely, but I really encourage businesses and residences to cut back on landscape irrigation. I believe the city manager mentioned it, but that is the key for making it through the summer without having to go to a phase 3. And with that, I will stop my water advertisement, and that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you for the report. We'll move to planning and building.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to report that the Zoning Code Committee has finished the review of the Part 3 of the code, which is the standards and the uses. We will resume the next phase, which is Part 2 this summer, and then we're tracking to have a public review draft available this fall. So I just, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we're having it's cutting in and out. If I give you a closer, it's better.
Okay. So just to recap, this subcommittee's done great work. We finished the phase 3, part 3 of the code, and we're going to be resuming the subcommittee meetings this summer with part 2. And we expect to have a public review draft available this fall. That concludes my update. Thanks.
And do we have a representative from police or fire here this evening? Seeing none, we'll move now to our council members. We'll start with Council Member Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Maya and Lester, for the zoning subcommittee update. I did just have one thing I wanted to raise as we're thinking about water. We're also obviously thinking about fire right now. And Pat Dell had just mentioned this need for perhaps an ad hoc group to be expanded for Vineyard Valley. I was just thinking, my top list of priorities obviously would be great to spend more time with the council on water issues or on revenue issues, workshop or something. But another need is actually maybe a deeper dive in the fire department if there's an opportunity to do that or get that queued up at some point. As we're thinking about revenue, I just thought it would be good to understand really the extent to which we have a revenue shortfall without understanding the needs of the fire department. It seems like this department is sort of going through a slow evolution right now. It'd be nice to do a deeper dive at some point. And I think in speaking with the chief and in speaking with the city manager, it sounds like there's been an opportunity in the past, at least annually, to do a deep dive on the fire department. This would be my first time as a new council member to be able to do that, and be great to get it queued up sooner rather than later if there's another vote from the council to do it.
I'm happy to second that thought.
Thank you, Lester.
Thank you, Councilmember Hill.
Thank you. Very good. And certainly that is at the top of our list in terms of looking at our fire emergency preparedness, et cetera. Councilmember Hall, anything else on?
No, nothing else from me. Thank you.
So then I'll move to Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. I did have something. I was also thinking about how, since we're moving forward on the college lease, that I wanted to see if we could start having a conversation about the other two parcels with City Hall and Railroad. Just start that conversation and see if there's council support for a workshop to look at those parcels and what we can do there.
I certainly am in support of looking comprehensively at our city properties, the movement of City Hall, and I'm assuming we'll have a little more of a conversation later in the meeting about it. But in terms of looking comprehensively at our city properties, I think there's a great value in that. So I'm supportive of that.
So am I.
I'd like to see a report from the city manager before we go into a workshop mode, frankly. Try to lay the foundation, and maybe that's an opportunity on a near-term future agenda to develop our plan for moving forward, including whatever additional information gathering we need to do.
Thank you. Councilmember Chateau, any additional comments before we move forward?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Hardy?
Yes, I don't have a report, but I do have an agenda item to propose, not too dissimilar from Councilmember Hall's comments. I'm thinking very much these days about how best to organize our efforts at council level around our biggest priorities. And in thinking about that, I would like to propose that we have an agenda item where we review all our council committee assignments, make sure that we have some kind of accord on what we're doing, and that we have the assignments laid out in a manner that really enables us to take advantage of every council member's strengths. So I'd like to make a motion that we have a review of our council assignments on our next agenda, which I believe is June 8th.
Mark, what are you seeing some capacity at this point for that discussion? Councilmember Hardy, is there? Oh, sorry. Is there an acceptable, if it's looked at in the next few meetings rather than the next meeting, if the city manager is looking at how we slot something in?
Well, I've made a motion. I'm looking for a date certain, and of course I don't get that without at least a second to the motion. I'm open to discussion on which date, but I do want to proceed if I get a second with a motion that puts it on a date certain.
I'll second it. And if there's time available on the 8th, then that works for me. If there's a meeting soon after that, that works as well.
And with that item or that issue, I think the Vice Mayor made a sort of a good practice in reporting out from some of his committee work. There may be a part of that discussion how we have a protocol for reporting in from our committees, et cetera. So I think that could be folded into that conversation as well.
I'll call the question then.
Thank you. And if there's a roll call, please.
Just a second. Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Hardy?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Chateau?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring?
No.
Mayor Ellsworth?
Yes. Okay. And then Councilmember Hardy, is there any additional thought at this point or comment?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I'll move to Vice Mayor Doring.
Well, as you know, through the city clerk, I sent a little update about some of the various committees. I don't need to repeat that to you all. So there's nothing else other than I'm glad we're going to the broken record approach and not the drip, drip, drip approach. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I just have a few comments here. First of all, I will also get on the broken record on water conservation. Everything we can do to work with our small and large users, we want to push forward, and also looking for resources where we can. Our emergency preparedness is also at the top of the list. We want to keep that in front of everyone's minds. Oh, going back very briefly, gold is the new green. The sign I think is great. I think that's a good campaign for water conservation. Moving forward, yes, on emergency preparedness, I want to recognize that the city, as well as the post office, are flying the POW MIA flag that will fly from the city's ceremonial flagpole through Memorial Day. And that's an opportunity for us all when passing by or at home to take a moment and reflect and thank those folks and their families for the sacrifices and what they have given for us as we get close to Memorial Day to remember. I also want to recognize that we have Pride Month coming up, where we'll be raising the progress flag from the ceremonial flagpole. We'll have a consent item regarding that. That's June, and that's celebrating diversity and inclusion in our community, our LGBTQ plus members of our community. I recently attended a training from the Rainbow Action Network with a rainbow kit that they provide to help in education on inclusion for families. And it's a wonderful program. So that's coming up Pride Month. And we continue our conversations about climate and what we can all do in our decision-making to think about our future and the future of next generations and generations that are currently here. So with that, I will now move to our presentations and public recognitions. And we're going to begin. Is Julie Spencer with us? I'm seeing her on, but I'm not seeing.
I am here.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. This is and Julie Spencer is from Rianda House in St. Helena. This is a proclamation declaring May as National Older Americans Month, presented to Julie Spencer from the Rianda House Executive Director. This is brought forth by Councilmember Chateau. So thank you for bringing this forward. I'm going to read the presentation, and then hopefully you have a few words for us. Thank you.
I'll be brief.
This is the City of St. Helena Proclamation, National Older Americans Month, May 2021. Whereas the City of St. Helena celebrates our older citizens and the key role they play in sharing the wisdom and experience that inform today's decisions and actions, and fostering the connection and engagement that builds strong, resilient communities. Whereas the City of St. Helena recognizes our responsibility to ensure that every American has the right to the opportunity to age with dignity. And whereas the City of St. Helena remembers that the COVID-19 pandemic has imposed tremendous hardships on our older adults. Older adults, particularly those from communities of color, have comprised the majority of deaths from COVID-19. Many older adults have suffered extreme social isolation from being separated from friends, family, and community resources throughout the pandemic. In spite of this, older citizens have stepped up to support their families, friends, and neighbors. They are among our essential workers, volunteers, and donors, bolstering their communities and inspiring others to do the same. Whereas the residents from St. Helena and surrounding area came together to create Rianda House, the only senior center north of Napa to provide opportunities to enrich the lives of individuals of all ages by involving older adults in the redefinition of aging in our community, promoting home and community-based services that support independent living, encouraging older adults to participate in healthful, educational, supportive, and fun activities. And whereas the face of our community is growing older, as older adults are the fastest growing population in Napa County, with demographic data showing there are now more residents over the age of 65 than under 20. This growing population is a tremendous asset to our community, and we know there is more we must do to ensure that older Americans can live and age with dignity. We are committed to ensuring older Americans can easily access appropriate services they need to stay safe and healthy as they age. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Jeff Ellsworth, Mayor of the City of St. Helena, do hereby proclaim May as National Older Americans Month in the City of St. Helena and call upon our citizens to celebrate older adults and the people who serve them as an influential and vital part of our community. May 25th, 2021. Thank you. Julie?
Just want to say thank you so much, Mayor Ellsworth, council members, staff, and a special nod to Anna Chateau, Council Member Chateau, for bringing this proclamation to the attention of the council as well as to the community. Rianda House is quite honored to be able to support our older adults as they grow young in their years and stay connected. It has been quite a challenge over this last year for all ages. And we're grateful for our partnership with the city and our many other agency partners to create a strong net, as strong as we can during this difficult time. So I want to say thanks to the city for giving this nod to our older adults. Older Americans Month started in 1963 by President Kennedy, and it's going strong ever since. And I want to also give another nod to, without Greta Erickson and Jean Rianda, Rianda House would not be what we are today. So it took the power of some older adults realizing that we needed to have a place for our older adults in a local welcoming spot. And we're forever grateful for their leadership, and then also for the city and the community members, donors, volunteers who get in behind us every day in supporting our older adults. So thank you, thank you. I do encourage everybody to reread this proclamation because the words are very powerful, and it's very well done. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Mayor Ellsworth and council members.
Thank you. And I just want to say that what we saw in the pandemic was our older adults not just sitting down, they stepped up and sorry.
It's been tough, hasn't it, Jeff? Yeah.
Our older adults have stepped up and volunteered and helped carry this community through what we just went through. Mm-hmm. So I want to recognize there's more than just what we have done for the older adults. The older adults have stepped up for us as a city and a community. It's remarkable. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ellsworth. I know my board and our staff and our volunteers are all here with me in spirit with our gratitude to the council and the city for all you do to make St. Helena a age-friendly community. It's in your agendas all the time, and very much appreciate that. Takes a lot of work to make a city age-friendly. So thanks for that commitment.
Thank you. Thank you for your commitment.
And we're looking forward to being back together again. I'm sorry, I have to have some excitement.
We're getting there. Yes.
We're not sure when that's going to be because everybody's asking all the time, but it's coming, and it'll be a very joyous day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you so much. I just really wanted to say quickly, thank you, Julie. I mean, you have been such a light in keeping everybody together for reaching older adults through COVID, through monthly Zoom meetings, and making sure their needs are still taken care of, and just keeping the group connected and their spirits high. And I've never seen anything like that. So thank you. We're lucky to have you in our community leading Rianda House.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Chateau. I appreciate that nod.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward. Yeah. So we'll move now to our staff briefing, seeing none. Then we'll move to our consent items. And this is where members of the council or public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of considering alternative action, for extended discussion, or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. And so I'll just read through the numbers. If anybody would like to pull one, please raise a hand. I will start with item number 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, 9.4, 9.5, 9.6.
I'd like to pull 9.6.
Okay, so we're going to pull 9.6 and then 9.7. Okay, so with that, I would look for a motion to adopt the consent calendar with the exception of item 9.6.
I'll move that we adopt the consent calendar.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Chateau,
Yes.
Hardy,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. And so with that, we'll move back to item 9.6, and I'll ask Councilmember Chateau if there's some clarification that she's looking for.
I did. I just wanted to talk about that $11,000 that we're paying for the COVID year that we didn't seem like we used the building. So I wanted some more clarification about that, why we pay that same amount when it appeared like we weren't using the building.
Actually, I was attending the building during the boardroom. I was in the boardroom for council meetings. And then we shifted to live streaming via Zoom, but Napa TV still needed to gain access to share the video on channel 28. So we were actually using the building. That's what the charge is for.
Okay, thank you.
Does that clarify for you, Councilmember Chateau?
Yes, it does.
Okay, very good. So with that, I would entertain a motion on item 9.6. Oh, I'm sorry, but I should open that to public comment. And I'll see with the clerk if there is public comment.
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the council and see if there's any additional council comment. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion on 9.6.
I'll move that we approve it.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Councilor Chateau,
Yes.
Hardy,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. Very good. Thank you. And now we'll move to public hearings. Seeing none, we'll move to old business. This is 11.1, consideration and award of nonprofit grant application funding in the fiscal year 2021-22 operations budget in the amount of $209,530. I'm going to be passing this to Dr. Mitz in just a moment. I do want to just take a moment and recognize it's been a challenging year for the city, for everybody. We've worked with our grants and done what the best we could do to put together a balanced package, but we want to recognize it was a challenging year, and the folks that have come forward are value to us. And Dr. Mitz will get into the report here, but with the idea that folks know that this was a more challenging year than most.
Great. Thank you very much for the introduction. So the item before you tonight is for the City Council to discuss the proposed funding for the fiscal year 22 nonprofit grant awards. A little bit of background on the grant program. In 2015, the City Council did adopt its nonprofit funding policy. Informally, it was done before, but in 2015, it actually adopted a formalized policy to set forth the parameters and establish guidelines for the annual grant funding of nonprofit agencies. Then in 2018, the policy and guidelines were amended to provide more direction and clarity and to align the funding with the city's mission statement and adopted annual goals. This also included separating the grant program into two categories, which is the community enrichment category, as well as the programmatic category. So for this upcoming fiscal year, for fiscal year 22, the city did receive a total of 26 applications for the upcoming cycle for a total of $421,828, which exceeded the program budget by $231,800. The grants were broken down as follows. So for community enrichment, there are 9 applications totaling $69,875. And for programmatic grants, it was 15 applications for $351,953. Once the applications were received, they were all reviewed for completeness, and then they were presented to the City Council Working Group to discuss the funding recommendations. As Mayor Ellsworth had stated, the decisions were extremely difficult, and they were based on both the city's continued financial constraints due to the pandemic, while also balancing and ensuring the needs of the community are met to the extent possible. And I do want to say a quick, very much thank you to Mandy Kellogg. She is on the call tonight, but feeling a little under the weather, who spearheaded this program. And also Stephanie Killingsworth in our accounting department, our finance department, who really helped out Mandy this year prepping everything for the council subcommittee. So the total proposed funding tonight is $209,530, which is a 22% increase over the fiscal year 21 awards. At this point, I will be sharing my screen so you can see the recommendations that are before you. And staff is looking for direction on the recommendations and for approval in order for us to finish building the fiscal year 22 operating budget. So let me share my screen real fast. And then as the discussion takes place, if there is any other considerations that would like to be done, I can update this in real time so you can see what it actually does to the funding. So with that, I will turn it over to City Manager Prestwich if he had any comments, and or council members for their comments as well.
I have no additional comments. However, we will need to zoom in on that spreadsheet.
Mr. Prestwich, what in terms of, okay, looking at this, are we going to be walked through this? What is our plan here?
So I guess I'll add a few more comments. I want to thank Mayor Ellsworth and Vice Mayor Doring for their help in helping to provide some recommendations to the full council. It would have been very difficult to take the extraordinary number of funding requests and volume and try to narrow that down in a council meeting. So we've been through a couple of rounds of review and developed some recommendations, which you see in column E. And in order to provide some context, we've also provided a summary in column C of what was approved for funding in the current year. In column D, what was requested from each of the various grant applicants, and then the recommended funding in column E for this year. So what we can do, these are not locked in. They're certainly subject to change, and the focus tonight is to receive feedback from the council on whether these numbers are okay or whether they should change in some form or fashion. So it may be helpful to take these one by one, or at least category by category. So the first one is the community enrichment grants. We have a $10,000 cap established for each funding for total funding requests and a maximum allocation of $50,000. And the working group is recommending $36,000 here. And then just below, just to distinguish this from the programmatic grants below, $30,000 caps on each funding request with a maximum funding allocation. That should say, I believe 160. April, 140. So, and if you scroll down a little bit farther, April, we'll see the total funding proposed under column E, $173,000 in this particular group. So this is a category where the grant application indicates $140,000 would be estimated. The council working group is recommending $173,000 be invested here for a total general fund contribution of $184,000. And $25,000 would be proposed to be assigned to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So April, it probably is helpful to move to the top, and we'll work first with the community enrichment grants and be sure that the council has an opportunity to walk through these. And Mayor Ellsworth or Vice Mayor Doring, you may have an interest in sharing some of your thoughts on this as well.
Okay, if I'm going to see if Vice Mayor Doring has any comments. If not, then we can just move through and then see where the council, if there's any input. Vice Mayor Doring?
No, not at this time.
Okay, so we'll bring it back. And as I mentioned, this was a challenging year, and we worked, and our finance department just does an incredible job, and we balanced with what we could, and we want to be consistent and work with sort of our objectives and policies. And Dr. Mitz is going to walk us through here. And if there are any other council comments, or please chime in, and then we'll also look for public comment.
I just have one quick comment before we get started, I guess.
Yes.
Is there, number one, I guess, is there any public comment? Maybe that's the best place to start. And then secondly, has the number of organizations increased this year versus prior years? That would be another thing to look at. And then the overall budget, the 209, I'd be interested in understanding how we capped the budget at that number. Thank you.
Dr. Mitz or Mr. Prestwich?
So I can address the first part of this. So yes, there has been, we have seen a steady increase in the amount of applications from when we actually formalized the policy in 2015, and definitely an increase between last year and this year. And here you can see some of these did apply, like if you look at the first set here, some of these did apply in for the 2021 cycle, but they were not granted the awards. And so unfortunately, I don't have that information right in front of me because they just didn't align with the council's goals last year, especially going into COVID. And as far as the 209,000, I might defer that over to City Manager Prestwich. And if he doesn't have that, I will research it really fast as we're going through one by one.
Thank you, Dr. Mitz.
Mark, I think you've got to mute.
Sorry about that. I can answer that generally. Yes, we have essentially going in each January is when we open the grant program, and the applications indicate the amount of funding that we anticipate to be available for the program. So that was noted on the application that $50,000 of community enrichment grants were forecasted, and $140,000 of programmatic grant funding. Not really knowing at the time whether we would be in a financial position to support that full allocation. Today, we do believe we can. The budget workshop that we had recently, we did program in, I believe, Dr. Mitz, the full $209,000 because this prioritization was developed before that budget workshop. So the budget workshop included a little over $32,000 of additional resources beyond the prior year. That was that the mayor and the vice mayor were recommending for consideration this year. We can certainly adjust that 209 to a different number. If it increases, it will possibly mean some additional adjustments in other parts of our citywide budget. And as you know, it's a little early for us to know our full revenue forecast because the hotel tax revenue has been quite volatile. We're expecting better performance in May, and we want an opportunity to see that. So we're likely going to have data to share with you at your next council meeting of June 8th on the revenue front.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other council comments before we get into this? Seeing none, Dr. Mitz?
Okay, so I will just go through these real briefly, but so here are the applications that were submitted. So the Art Council of Napa Valley, the Boys and Girls Club of St. Helena in Calistoga, and they have 2 applications in, one under Community Enrichment and one under Programmatic. So this is for their homework assistance program. The Federated Women of Upper Napa Valley for college scholarships, Friends of the Cameo for the Cameo Cinema Drive-In, which, as we know from last year, it was a shift from what they normally do as a result of COVID. The Lunchtime Productions for a Summer 2021 St. Helena Drama Camps, Napa Valley State Parks for summer camp scholarships and outdoor program assistance, Nimbus Arts for their arts program, St. Helena Community Band for yearly performances, the St. Helena Community Garden, the St. Helena Historical Society for Pioneer Classroom and Education Center, and then Upstage Napa Valley, which is for their first annual Upstage Napa Valley Playwrights Festival. So for each of those, you can see the funding that was requested. So for the Arts Council it was $6,500. The proposed is $3,250. For Boys and Girls Club, the ask was $10,000. The proposed was $5,000. For the Federated Women, the scholarship, the ask was $2,000, and then proposed funding was $0. For the Cameo Cinema Drive-In, it was $8,000, and the proposed funding was $8,000. For Lunchtime Productions, it was an ask of $2,000 and proposed funding of the same. For Napa Valley State Parks, the ask was $5,000 and the proposed funding is $2,500. Nimbus Arts, the ask was $3,630 with funding of the same. The St. Helena Community Band, the ask was $10,000 and the proposed funding is $4,000. The St. Helena Community Garden, the ask was $5,450 and the proposed funding was $0. The St. Helena Historical Society, the ask was $11,200. The proposed is $5,000. And then the Upstage Napa Valley, the ask is $6,095 with a proposed funding of $3,050. So again, it brings the total ask request for the community enrichment of $69,875, and the proposed funding is just about half of that is $36,430. So at this point, I'd look to the City Council for direction if they would want to look at any one of those to adjust those numbers.
Any input from the council at this point? And seeing Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. I was just curious if we have any understanding if any of these nonprofits would be able to actually function in line with their request. So in other words, if their request was to pay for 2 or 3 individuals to help with something, let's say, or pay an hourly wage for somebody to accommodate something, and our reduction in that request basically kills their program entirely, even though it's something that we're doing, which I love to see. Does it actually kill the program? Are we aware of any programs where that might be the case here?
April, I don't know, or Mark, if you have any thoughts, but I can jump in with something too.
Yeah, I'm not aware, but through public comment, you may receive some feedback on that.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Yeah, and from our perspective, looking at it, the cuts would have to do with certain programmings that are part of a larger push or group. So we did not analyze if it would. What we allocated was towards specific programming, not the support of the group itself. I don't know if that's giving it any clarity.
Yep, understood. Thank you.
Okay.
And I can also provide a little more clarification as well. So once the proposed list was formulated, notifications were sent out to all of the people who applied for grants, whether they received any award or they did not receive any award. And we did not receive any feedback directly from anybody who would be receiving awards saying that would inhibit the ability. Doesn't mean that it might not, but we did not receive any direct feedback from that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, if there's no additional comment on this from the council, we can move to the programmatic grants, go through that, and then I'll open it for public comment.
Great, thank you very much. So the programmatic grants, again, it's a $30,000 cap for the funding request with a maximum allotment of $140,000. So we have the Boys and Girls Club for the St. Helena Teen Center, Friends and Foundation for a technology lending program.
April, if I could interrupt,
Yeah.
if you just, as you're reading them, you could do the funding request as you go through the list.
Perfect.
The first time, I think would be fine.
I thought about recategorizing that in my head, but then I wanted to stay consistent with my first presentation. So yes, the Boys and Girls Club, it's a St. Helena Teen Club. The requested funding was $30,000. The proposed is $28,000. Friends and Foundation, it was a technology lending program through the city's library. The requested funding was $12,576, and then the proposed funding was $0. For Mentis, it was youth and family mental health treatment. The requested was $30,000. The proposed is $20,000. Napa Valley Community Housing for disaster relief fund for low-income residents at nonprofit communities. The request was $10,000. The proposed funding was $0. Ole Health was for Ole Health Services. The request was $23,377, and the proposed is $5,000. Our Town St. Helena is for a transition yearly capacity building. The request is $30,000. The proposed is $25,000, and this is the $25,000 that could be funded through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Rionda House Senior Center is a senior activity center. Request was $30,000. The funding proposed is $25,000. The St. Helena Family Center is for enrollment expansion with a new classroom space. Request was for $30,000. The proposed funding was $10,000. Seroptimus International of St. Helena is for their scholarship program. The ask was for $16,000. The proposed was $0. St. Helena Cooperative Nursery School is for the St. Helena Co-op Nursery School. The ask was for $30,000 and the proposed is for $10,000. St. Helena's Farmers Market is the Market Match Program. The request was $10,000 and the proposed funding is $5,100. St. Helena Preschool for All, it is for scholarships. The proposed is the ask was $30,000 and the proposed is $10,000. St. Helena Catholic Church is for additional food cards, fuel vouchers for families in need. The ask was $30,000 and the proposed funding was $10,000. Valley Centers for community connections and immigration assistance. The ask was for $30,000 and the proposed funding is for $25,000. St. Helena Little League for uniforms and equipment. The ask is for $10,000 and the proposed funding was $0. So again, the total funding request for this category was $351,953 with a total funding proposed of $173,100. And again, $25,000 of that amount would be from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Thank you for running us through that. And as you can see, it was a challenging year and we had to make very difficult decisions, but we are, as a community and a city, working as hard as we can to kind of rebuild our revenue streams, et cetera. So hopefully we can be as supportive as we can, moving forward. Are there any council comments here before I open it to public comment?
I have a comment.
Okay. I'm seeing Councilmember Hall, and then I'll move to Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. I'll do the raise hand.
Thank you. I was just raising my hand. Now I lost. Anyway, I was just wondering a couple of questions. One, there was a comment you made, Dr. Mitz, about our town, St. Helena. I didn't understand what you said there about the 25 grand. The other question I had was the St. Helena Family Center and the Up Valley Family Center. Are those the same organization? And that's it. Thank you.
Great. I can answer your quick questions. So for our town, St. Helena, it is because their program has to do with affordable housing for the city of St. Helena. We can utilize affordable housing trust funds to be able to pay for, to be able to to cover the cost for the grant that they've applied for. And so that would not be coming out of general fund, that would be coming out of another fund. And then as far as the difference between those two different, it was, oh gosh, which one was it again?
The
Up Valley Centers.
Up Valley Family Center and St. Helena Family Center, those are different organizations?
They are different organizations.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the St. Helena Little League, because I think that they also, they came to us last year for uniforms and equipment. And I wondered if we couldn't have a discussion and then give them some feedback, because I see when I'm watching it that they just have an incredible amount of parents that are volunteering and doing a lot of work, and they're using our fields. And I know that they're paying about $10,000 to maintain them, if I read that correctly in the application. And I know that I've thought about how could we help with uniforms and equipment for the kids who can't afford it, not all of them. And I don't know if it's appropriate to have conversation at the council level on that or not, but I would love to give them some feedback if we did have some consensus for future years on what we could help support them on, and what makes sense or what we're looking at. I know this was incredibly difficult and it's so hard to make these choices, and we don't have enough money. This wasn't a great year for us, like everybody. So we just don't have enough to fund all of the needs. That's just something that I've thought about, because it really is just a remarkable effort that the parents are doing for all of the volunteer time. And I'd like to support them in that, since they're dedicating so many hours towards our youth, which also there's so many people go and participate in it. I also was thinking about the garden at the park next to my house. The community garden is a little bit like that too, in terms of it's in our park, they're using our land, and they're providing this great community asset that adds value to our parks, to have that garden and having that activity and providing an experience that people can do for a really affordable rate. It's $50 to have a garden there. So just some thoughts. Wondered if any other council members want to talk about it.
I can make a few comments on that. I think I concur that they're both very worthy efforts. And I wonder if both could, in a sense, maybe come to public comment in the coming weeks and sort of explain to us a little bit more about their programs. And that could help us see, in the future, how we can direct support their way, learning a little bit more about the sort of the nuances of what they're doing. I know that the baseball, the Little League group has talked about renovations and moving forward on what they want to do for the infrastructure. So that's also maybe an intersection for, as we talk as a community, also about revenue, about potential of bonds. The Little League is also, asked about if the city is looking or able to think about helping with the infrastructure. So maybe there's an intersected conversation there.
I would propose just having one or two of us have a conversation for bringing back recommendations for next year even.
I would support that on both those counts, the garden and the baseball. Any other council thoughts here? So
I do think it's the right thing to look forward to bringing back for the next fiscal year, and the conversation can begin before then. But I think that's the right slot to put it in.
thank you. So I'll look for council comments. If not, I will open it to public comment at this point.
We do have some hands raised. Trent, I'm going to allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and address the council. You have 4 minutes.
Hi, this is Trent Yaconelli from the Boys and Girls Club. I wanted to just talk about our program, the teen program. That's a program that we took over, I think 3 or 4 years ago, after the city had been running it and felt like we would be better at match, and they weren't having very much success. Since that time, we've invested over $180,000 a year into that program. And we've worked with teens in all sorts of capacity to help them be better citizens and better human beings. And this last year was rough, like it is for everybody. But suddenly we went from budgeting for some of our staff working 3 hours a day to working 8 hours a day with our teen kids. Mental health issues, drug issues, depression issues, all the things that came with the pandemic. We had nightly check-ins. Our staff were calling in and checking in with certain kids who were dealing with depression, and also we're dealing with just stuff of like breakups and not being able to go to the college that they were hoping they were going to go to, and those kind of things. I feel incredibly grateful for what you guys have supported us, but at the same time, this is the time where I think we dig deep. And just as every organization has, there's some key organizations in this town, like Beyond a House, like Up Valley Family Centers, that we've been here through thick and thin. And when things have gotten worse, we've dug as deep as we can to support the city and its citizens. And I know that you guys have hard decisions to make. I know infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. But if the quality of life of our citizens goes down, then what are we doing all of this for? And so with that said, I would ask the council to reconsider with some of these organizations, and definitely with the Teen Center. Like, we're the only group in town that are serving teens. And in a time when teens are struggling the most, I think that every bit that we can do for our teens programs and our St. Helena teens makes a difference. And as I said, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and we're out there hustling every single day to make sure that that program stays vibrant and healthy. We're going to be taking vaccinated St. Helena teens in 1 month. We're going to be taking them up into the mountains of Oregon for a mental health teen retreat. And we have a waiting list of kids and it's encouraging them to get vaccinated as well. So that's my last comment there. So thank you.
Thank you for the comment, the input. It's very much appreciated. We will go and see if there's additional public comment.
Yes. Hi, Jenny. I'm going to allow you to speak. You have 4 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Hi, this is Jenny Olson, Prevention Director at Mentis. I just wanted to thank you for your ongoing support of our mental health and wellness programs in St. Helena. If funding is approved, we will continue to offer mental health therapy for youth and families, which is very much needed, as we just heard from Trent, in partnership with the Up Valley Family Center. So just thank you so much for your support. This work is needed now more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment?
There is. Stuart, I'm going to unmute you. You can unmute yourself and address the council.
Great. My name is Stu Harrison. I'm joined here by Shari Renault. We're with Upstage Napa Valley. We are so delighted to be considered for this grant. As many of you may know, we are a community theater, and indeed our community is St. Helena. So performances take place at Grace Church. We do 1 or 2 readings a year at St. Helena Library. Anyway, this is our Playwrights Festival. We're so delighted. We're going to make it St. Helena centric.
23.
Well, we've had 23 submissions, of which we've requested that all of our submissions be from individuals or playwrights, budding playwrights, within 20 or 30 miles of the city of St. Helena. Most of them have come in, have been St. Helena residents, which is exciting. Our actors, as they are in our normal performances, will be anywhere between 50 and 80% from the city of St. Helena. So we are very excited about the prospect of being considered. And to answer one of the councilman's questions on the subject of, is this something that's going to, will it affect us, the level of funding? It will not. We are, this is our community, and we will go ahead with this. I think one of the things we mentioned in our proposal that funding would allow us to make attendance of these plays. We're going to put on 4 or 5 different plays. It will allow us to make it complimentary to the citizens of St. Helena. So that would be a wonderful side, but we're going ahead. This is our, this is our community, and we're moving forward. So at any rate, we'd love to get incidentally, we'd love to make this a real collaboration with the city of St. Helena, in the sense that we'd love to, I don't know if there was a contact there, but we would love to be sure we're working in unison on this festival. And incidentally, we understand there are any number of individuals in the hierarchy of St. Helena city government that may have a background in theater. And indeed, we have any number of leading roles coming up, and there's a member of your city government that would be appropriate. Anyway, thank you all for the consideration.
I nominate Eric Hall.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for the public comments. Is there additional public comment?
There is no additional public comment.
Okay, with that, I'll bring it back to the council. Councilmember Hall, I just have a comment before, and then I see Vice Mayor Doring. I just want to recognize that what many of these nonprofits have done this last year is remarkable. And our funding is not just about supporting them. That funding goes back to helping support us as a community with the work that's done by these nonprofits. And as we recognize the schools, we recognize the nonprofits, the faith-based groups, the service groups, the remarkable level that everybody stepped up to. So I want to recognize many of these nonprofits, and Trent from the Boys and Girls Club was on, and I think that's very helpful for people to understand the levels that our nonprofits dug deep. Jenny Olson also was on talking about Teens Connect. This is heavy lifting, deep, important work for our community. And I just want to recognize that when we're supportive, it comes back and benefits us as a community, particularly in the hardest times. So with that, I saw Vice Mayor Doring's hand up, and then I'll move to Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. So, this was a particularly difficult year where you have over $400,000 of requests and you have to try to narrow it down. And we met for a significant amount of time, and we had some very robust conversations about what is the mission of the city, and tried to keep our focus on the mission of the city, even though all of these different groups are extremely worthy. And so it is difficult to say no to certain people. I have a couple of observations. One is that I think it would be helpful to revisit this whole plan in about 3 months to see how our budget is faring. I do agree that there are certain, maybe this is my bias, but there are certain nonprofits in our community that sort of have been here for a long time and are well-established, sustainable, and doing a lot of good work in our community, especially during the pandemic and the economic recovery. And that really was, that and mental health and wellness were sort of the focus, with a little bit of food security. Just the pandemic is so overwhelming. And so that was the lens from which we looked at all of these different groups. But I think we could come back and revisit and sort of take a look at how our revenues are coming in and make an adjustment. The second observation I would make is that some of these groups probably should be handled outside of this annual nonprofit award ceremony. And some of them, I think, I think the Boys and Girls Club, the Teen Center is one. Round the House is probably another, and the Up Valley Family Centers. Others may disagree with that, but some of these probably are, in my view, the more automatic and should not be in this sort of a situation. So I offer that for maybe next year to kind of maybe think about some of these things. Extremely difficult. I really am impressed by all the work that our nonprofits and their leadership do. It's absolutely just fabulous. But I do think we can maybe adjust this. It may go down. I hope it doesn't go down, but maybe it can go up. So those are my thoughts. That's kind of where I am with it. I would recommend the list as it is, frankly. And let's just see how it goes, because, you know, when you start from over 450,000 or whatever that number was, and you narrow it down, we couldn't get down to the 200. That was our goal, to get to about 200,000. We couldn't get there, frankly. So, you know, we tried and we struggled, but that's kind of where we are right now. But, you know, Trent makes a good argument, and I think that it's worthy of revisiting that in a couple of months.
Thank you. And we see Councilmember Hall and then Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. And thank you, Vice Mayor Doring. I especially appreciate your comments about the process, the effort. I wouldn't know how to start with that list. I would back up and do what you were doing, I guess, which is recognize that we're in effectively a state of emergency, and with a shrinking checkbook, and where do you put the dollars? So with that, I'm glad I was not part of that, those initial cuts. I like the idea of revisiting this as we're right in the middle of our budget. So as we get a little bit more clarity, I know we're still trying to understand not only water impact, but also revenue. Are things starting to turn a little bit or not? Obviously, we have a huge amount of infrastructure to pay for that we haven't ever set any money aside for. So we do have a lot of conversation there. I think, you know, Trent's comments, Jenny's comments, you know, I don't know if the rest of the community has had an opportunity to attend some of these programs, or some of their own sort of recognition and awards for the teens that come up through these programs. But it's really moving stuff. It's very remarkable what these folks do, and the work they put in, and what happens to the lives of these teens and these kids. So the more effort we could put in there, I think the better. I mean, personally, I'd like to see more go into both of those programs tonight, if possible. I also did want to back up for one moment and mention to Mr. Harrison, I like this, you know, this visual arts. I just don't think we do enough of it, or the performing arts, I guess. So one of the things I've been thinking about as a separate activity as part of business recovery is, how do we get our arts and culture to help do more to help propel our economic development in town. And so part of that is looking at historic departments like Parks and Rec, and see if we can't figure out how to broaden that out and relabel it Arts and Rec, and think about that as a whole category of you know, a much broader environment than just our city parks, and a variety of other activities, I guess, that our Parks and Rec department are currently engaged in. I mean, it's an amazing amount of activities across all these ball fields. But let's fold in visual arts, performing arts, and add the cultural component to that element going forward, and see if we can't, as we move forward with our economic development, put a little bit more oomph behind that aspect of our community as well. So that said, I would like to see a couple more dollars, if folks agree, put behind Jenny and Trent, and I like the idea of reviewing the list again in 2 months to boot. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. Yeah, my comment was from before, when I was going to say, I want to make sure that whatever we approve a night, we don't say less money. Like, I want them to be able to have security that what we say is for, that they can go forward as planned. And that when we revisit in a couple months, that's if we're doing better. We support those organizations that have really helped get us through this really hard time. And we know there really is increased need in our community.
Thank you. And I'm very pleased that the Vice Mayor brought up that the conversation had gone to revisiting this as soon as we can. You know, we are recognizing that we're in a recovery. The numbers are changing. It's fluid, and we'll have more information as we get through the budgeting process. So I'm in support of revisiting. I do also think that the idea that there are a number of these nonprofits who have been tried and true over many years. And I think it's time for us to move a few of those into a sort of a regular budget item, particularly because of the needs they serve in the community. And I'll echo, as Vice Mayor said, looking at Up Valley Family Center, Boys and Girls Club, Rienda House. And there are others that are really making a great effort at being long-term partners. And so we want to keep these conversations open. I do want to mention Jenny Olson tonight was speaking up for Mentis as well. Mentis is a mental health service that works through all of these nonprofits. It's really remarkable. And so wanting to just recognize that they're a big part of our ability to be successful in challenging situations. So with that idea of revisiting, and as Councilmember Hall brought up looking for more dollars tonight, I don't know where those dollars would come from tonight. I can ask our city manager if there's some place, or can we hold the conversation knowing this is enough money for these folks to get started, and we'll revisit as soon as we can.
If there are adjustments tonight, what we would do is build that into the budget presentation that we bring you moving forward. We're going to revisit the revenue picture on June 8th and provide you information on our hotel tax revenues that we've received for the month of April. And so we would simply adjust the numbers, and if there are minor adjustments tonight, I don't foresee a challenge in accommodating those. If it's a much more substantial adjustment, then those, we'll have to have a conversation about how to adjust some other expenditures within the budget.
Okay, I would just want to check in with the Vice Mayor and his thoughts about looking for that this evening or looking to revisit. What are your thoughts?
Frankly, I would recommend that we wait until we have better numbers rather than go through an exercise where we don't know where those cuts are going to come from. I'm hesitant. I'm supportive of, I'm optimistic that we'll get that money for a couple of the groups that have been mentioned. I would recommend that we stay with this number with the idea that we come back in 2 or 3 months and look at those, Mentis and Boys and Girls Club in particular, maybe some others. I agree with Councilmember Chateau that my intent was not to go below the number. Folks should have certainty that that's the number they're going to get. I'm optimistic. One of the other things I neglected to say is some of these groups already work with the city, and we had to make some difficult choices with respect to those who are in our own system already, like community gardens. There's others that I can mention, but we are actually in a position to help them in other ways and maybe offset some of their expenses. And so that we made a decision there on a couple of the groups here. And then we did have some reservations about scholarships, frankly, other than for the younger preschool, which I am convinced that is a business recovery, mental health aspect, as opposed to scholarships for college-bound students. Absolutely important, but maybe not exactly within our mission. And so we struggled with that, and maybe people will pound me for that, but that's the reality of the discussion we had there. So I would recommend that we stick with this number and then come back certainly after June 8th so that we know a little bit more about what the revenue picture is. Those are my thoughts, but I am certainly not reluctant to revisit those in light of the comments of Mr. Hall and Ms. Chateau.
Councilmember Hall, does that sound acceptable if we commit to circling back as soon as possible after we get a little clear picture of the numbers?
I think so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to just check in with Councilmember Hardy to see if there's any input.
Well, I think this approach is fine. I'm going to interject a note of caution. In general, as our revenues increase, there's going to be a lot of competition in terms of other priorities for the funds. And I remain deeply concerned about the short-term and long-term consequences of being understaffed. So I just want to be sure that everyone, including members of the public and all of the wonderful organizations that are here tonight, we're not going to be able to treat those increased revenues as found money. We have to be very thoughtful about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments. So I think that helps us get to a next stage here that we'll have more information soon. Are there any other council comments before we move off of this subject? And then we'll look for a motion here.
Mr. Presswich, did you have something to add?
I wanted to make sure that we were clear on the direction. And so with a motion, I think that will help. And I also want to just confirm that I believe we've heard consistent feedback from a couple of council members that Rianda House, Up Valley Family Center, and the Boys and Girls Club are perhaps three groups that would potentially transition out of this program in the following year into what might be considered a multi-year type of contract, and that we would bring the nonprofit grant review of these applications back to the council after 3 months. That would place us at the second meeting in August or the first meeting in September. The first meeting in September would be an advantage because it would provide us one extra month of data from the hotels, and because we receive those receipts at the end of each month. So my recommendation would be the first meeting in September.
Does that sound reasonable to the council? Okay, seeing nods.
So I'll make a motion that we adopt the staff or approve the staff recommendation with the proviso that we revisit the recommendation in September of this year.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, who made the second?
Eric did.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes.
Councilor Hall,
Yes.
Hardy,
Yes.
Chateau,
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. Very good. And with that, we'll move off that with, again, deep thanks and gratitude to these organizations, our nonprofits who've really stepped up and helped us navigate through a very challenging time. So thank you for being wonderful participants in our community. We'll move now to our St. Helena Chamber of Commerce annual report and fiscal year 2021-22 budget. And I'll begin this. I'll hand it to Mr. Presswich in just a moment, but I just also want to recognize the Chamber of Commerce who during a very challenging year really stepped up and helped this community keep our stability through it all. So with that, I'll pass it to Mr. Presswich.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, I'm glad to present to you the President and CEO of the St. Helena Chamber of Commerce. Amy Carrabba Salazar presents an annual report to the City Council pursuant to the City Council's annual agreement with the Chamber. And Amy is with us tonight to share a report. And then following her presentation, I would like to speak with you briefly about the annual contract funding. So with that, let me introduce Amy.
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Perfect. Thank you
for
so
being
much.
here.
I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today. And first and foremost, so grateful for the partnership that the St. Helena Chamber of Commerce has with the city of St. Helena. We're so grateful for the support that we've had over the years. It really enables us to do so many different things. And I've prepared a little presentation for you that I will zip through as quick as I can and be as efficient as I can. So I will begin that now. One of the biggest questions I get is, what does the chamber do? And as you know, we get a contract with the city towards destination marketing, and we do all the destination marketing for the city of St. Helena. With that being said, our strategic priority really is to build a strong economic recovery marketing plan to generate revenue and traffic to the destination. We market St. Helena as the best of California's wine country. Our goals are obviously more visitors staying longer, having not a lot of impact on the city. We also like to be in alignment with the mission and the vision of the city, visitor spending being up, incentives to come and visit. And of course, our biggest goal is promoting brand awareness so people think of St. Helena when they're thinking about traveling. Positioning St. Helena as a world-class destination, educating consumers as why St. Helena is a must-travel destination, and really driving traffic through strategic digital advertising, new marketing assets, focusing on the history of St. Helena, lifestyle, passion, etc. So this is just a little reminder of what we get from the city. And, we're on a fiscal year, so end of June. So I have this up until May, but we get $210,000 total from the city. It's $180,000 towards destination marketing, and then $30,000 of that goes to community events. And then we were so graciously grateful that we received additional funding because we had such a difficult year, as you guys know, with COVID and impacts from the fire. And $50,000 of that went towards recovery marketing efforts, one towards a 3-city Up Valley marketing campaign, and the other towards a beginning phase 1 recovery marketing efforts. And basically, this is the breakdown of our revenue and our expenses total for the chamber on the destination marketing portion. I get the question all the time, what does the chamber do? And I do a quarterly update on our website. It is open for the public because I'm so proud to have such an incredible team behind the chamber working incredibly hard for our businesses and working hard on that destination marketing front. If you visit sthelena.com and click the chamber, these quarterly updates are there. We track everything. It is all there. You can see our numbers. And I like to do that because I like to be as transparent as possible. Within this last year, because of COVID, we really had to step up our game and get really creative. We launched a Shop Local campaign, #94574. I'm sure you saw that. We launched a recovery response resource center for our businesses on sthelena.com to really help navigate COVID-19. We've offered 9 free membership workshops so far to members and to non-members to really help our businesses. We launched a leadership workshop series, which was open to the public. Our membership retention rate on behalf of the chamber is at a 95% rate. I can't stress this enough. The team has worked incredibly hard for that. We launched a monthly member minute, 152% growth of page views on sthelena.com. We launched a virtual live chat and virtual welcome center on our website during COVID. We raised over $30,000 for the St. Helena gift card challenge. All of that money went to businesses that participated, and that was in partnership with the city. And in terms of destination marketing, we've had over almost 60 media placements within this last fiscal year during a pandemic. Just really great numbers, over 1,600 blogs, posts, tweets on social media, really strong impressions on our coverage book, which I'm going to show you shortly. We've hosted over 26 journalists during a pandemic, getting strategic coverage for St. Helena. We do marketing videos, over 12 different marketing videos produced. Our Instagram account is at, the reach is up almost 230%. We have 27,000 followers. I mean, so when people say, what does the chamber do? What does the chamber not do? I think our team works really hard. And yes, I'm going to brag because I'm so supportive of the chamber. This is an example of our coverage book, just to give you an idea what we've done within the last fiscal year. So as I mentioned, in 2020, from July through the rest of that fiscal year, we had 41 pieces of coverage. Again, reminding you, this is during a pandemic. And then so far this year, we've had 18. So really, if you add this together, our estimated coverage views is almost 1 million. I mean, really, really great, strong numbers. here's some examples of some strategic press that we've placed. We had a great article feature in the Los Angeles Times mentioning St. Helena. We were mentioned in Travel and Leisure's 10 of the best small towns in California. This is all done through our marketing firm, the Abbey Agency. They handle all our public relations and destination marketing along with the chamber. We do a lot of partnerships with influencers. As you guys know, I love social media. This is one of the best forms of marketing. So these are just a couple of examples and placements we had. One of the partnerships we did with the Bond Traveler, she came to St. Helena, shot a couple of videos, and those videos have had over 60,000 views in a very short span of airing. The chamber team works incredibly hard. This is an example of influencer visits and itineraries that we book within the chamber. And again, these are all influencers that come, they shoot video content, they push it out on their platforms, and we cross-promote marketing. And this is an example of what we did in just the month of March or April. I can't remember what I pulled, but in 1 month, we had over, 14 different influencers coming. So it's a lot of hard work and efforts, really highlighting pretty much everything. Downtown St. Helena, hotel lodging, dining, our wineries, our history. We featured the historical walking tour for downtown, just really covering everything, including even mountain biking and the great outdoors. Here's some more marketing highlights that we do. Again, a lot on our social platforms. That includes Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter. Also having placement in area newspapers like the Mercury Times, East Bay Times, because during the pandemic, we shifted our marketing gears to really focus on drive markets because nobody was traveling during that time. This is a quick update on our Up Valley 3-City marketing campaign that, once again, so grateful for the additional funding we received this year from the city to do this campaign in partnership with Calistoga and Yountville. The total campaign was $75,000 towards digital ads that are running right now to date. I actually just got word this morning that St. Helena has surpassed Yountville and Calistoga and is performing the best out of the other two towns, which was really exciting news. Our impressions to date are just over 500,000 at 527,000. That means people are engaging with the ad, they're seeing our brand, and hopefully they're booking a trip and coming and visiting. So we're at 80% of our goal, and we know that we're going to reach the goal once the campaign completes. Another thing that we do is we do these destination marketing email blasts. These go out once a month, really highlighting so many great things that St. Helena has to offer. This goes out to our curated email blast list that is just about 6,000 people. And what else can I tell you? We do have some upcoming press, some exciting features coming up. One in San Joaquin Magazine, one for AAA Magazine, one for Sacramento Magazine. So really working on a lot of future placements, including a new digital ad campaign. You're seeing some examples there of what those campaigns look like. I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea. And lastly, we do operate a welcome center also on Main Street. The chamber has 3 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee, so a total of 4. The welcome center is open 7 days a week. Obviously, during the pandemic, we were not physically able to be open, but we did do a virtual welcome center with a live chat launched on our website. Now we are open 7 days a week. We're currently the only welcome center open 7 days a week from 10 to 5. And just an example, we saw over 1,200 visitors in March. We track every person that comes through the door. And lastly, we also do community events. I'm sure you guys saw the snowflake. This is all in partnership with the city. We did a holiday wine barrel tour. We do a summer concert series every summer. It will be happening this year as well. The drive-in movie theater last year was in partnership with the Cameo, sidewalk sale, Earth Day. So really a lot of things the chamber does with a very small staff. As I mentioned, 3 full-time employees. And I do feel we work incredibly hard. My whole team is so passionate about St. Helena, super supportive. and truly focusing on our business advocacy, supporting our local businesses, and on the destination marketing front, really getting creative to work with our PR and marketing firms and our social media team and promote the town to drive traffic to the area to support local businesses. So with that being said, my last slide, we are asking respectfully for additional funding this next year to continue with our phase 2. So we've already completed phase 1, and phase 1 was about 50,000. That's the 25,000 from the city. The chamber put in the other half. And we have done a logo and brand refresh. We've got digital ad campaigns running for the first time ever. We've got new photography assets that were just taken, new video assets. And we are asking for, as I said, 100,000 for the new fiscal year to break that up in 25 increments of 25,000 per quarter to really get creative and continue these well-performing digital ad campaigns, making enhancements to sthelena.com and really pushing the destination marketing front to really enhance the brand and get visitors here. So with that being said, thank you so much for your time today. Once again, thank you so much for the support from the city. The chamber is incredibly grateful, and I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the phase 2 business recovery destination marketing plan. I can't stress it enough. A plan like this is vital for businesses, especially coming off a pandemic and going into fire season. So I truly feel this will be incredibly important for our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for really just jumping in through very, very challenging times. I'll open it to the council in just a moment, but I just do want to recognize that in our most challenging times, the chamber stayed engaged and kept the gears moving, was a great connective tissue. Things like the gift card challenge, just the presence of the chamber. Also, when the drive-in came up, that was a way for our community to really stay engaged in a socially distanced way, and that the participation of the chamber in that was just so helpful. So I want to recognize that. And also, you mentioned, where was the mention for St. Helena as one of the 10 best small towns in California? What
that was in Travel and Leisure. And if you go to our website, you can actually view our full coverage book. So you can see every ad placement that we've done within the fiscal year. So sthelena.com, click the chamber tab, and the coverage book is there for viewing.
Great. Thank you. So are there any any council comments or input at this point before I bring it to public comment? I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Amy, so much. It's really exciting to see all of those numbers and what you were able to do. And I was also really grateful for the communication you did during the pandemic with the businesses on making sure they understood the importance and just walking through all of the changes and how important it was for everybody to be wearing masks and how that was for safety for our community and how one person doing that wrong would risk our reputation and people feeling comfortable or not. That was such tricky communication. And I really appreciated your partnership through the chamber helping us do that. So thank you. I'm supportive of the extra money because I think that that's how we make money with sales tax and TOT, and our relationship with the chamber and partnership is how our city revenue depends on that. And I want to make sure that that keeps increasing. And also, as I understand it, it's a question, but what I've heard in the past is that we give the least amount compared to the other cities for working with you guys and the chamber. Is that true?
That is true. We're grateful for any dollar that we can get. We will stretch it and really put it into the marketing. But I do feel that the additional dollars, we're seeing it with the 2 different campaigns that we have running. They're really performing, and to hear today, to get that email today saying that more people are engaging with St. Helena over the other 2 towns, that was really interesting to hear. So I feel like we're there, but we just need to keep going and keep the momentum going.
Thank you. I'm seeing Vice Mayor Doring.
Thank you, Mayor. I am a little bit concerned about time, but I do have a question. Amy, thank you for all the work that you do for our community. One of the concerns I have is the overall budget, not just the city budget, but the overall chamber budget. Is that affected in any way by, fires and some of the things we're doing? I know that you rely, I don't know about heavily, but you rely on some big ticket sponsorships, right? And I don't know if your budget it has been dramatically affected over the next year or moderately affected. Can you give us sort of a general outline about how your budget's looking above and beyond what the city contributes?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I presented to you today in that first slide was our destination marketing budget, and we have a chamber budget. And just to give you an idea, we're at a 95% retention rate with our chamber membership dues. So that's been incredible. That hasn't been affected as much as I was anticipating, I should say, because obviously all businesses have been affected. And so there was a concern there. However, my budget has been drastically affected in terms of the support from the TID. We normally would get about 76,000. However, last year we received 40,000. And so it was a little bit of a hit, but we're grateful for the support. We understand how difficult the hotels suffered, correct? So they gave us what they could give, and we're forever grateful. Also, other funding areas were impacted, including we receive some funding from Visit Napa Valley, and that was impacted as well. We normally receive 30,000 and we received 9,000. So we did lose some revenue, but we got creative. We grew our membership in order to help get more money to push it towards marketing, and really focused on growing the membership during a pandemic, something that I think we thought would be really difficult and almost impossible to do, but we were able to do it to keep the chamber afloat. And really keep things running strongly, to answer your question.
Thank you. You answered my question.
Are there other council comments before I open it to public comment? Seeing none, I will open it to public comment. I'll look to Cindy to see if we have anybody.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, very good. So we'll bring it back to council. This report is excellent because you really break down, what you're doing and also what the plan is here moving forward. Are there any other tonight? We're looking. I'm seeing Councilmember Hall.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please.
Thank you. Amy, thank you very much. I always enjoy your updates here or on the TID board. I just wanted to comment. I like seeing all of the activity, the media placement, press mentions, the influencers. What's not yet clear in my mind is how the activity converts to filling commercial real estate downtown. And I'm sort of, not being real exact there in what I'm saying, but it's not your job to lease commercial space. Obviously, it's your job to create excitement and get people here to the region. It's up to our local commercial real estate brokers and our landlords to fill the space. But, and I know that you've got business recovery labeled in your campaign names. I'm just wondering what's the connection between the influencers, for example, and getting excitement about our downtown space. I'm not actually looking for an answer tonight. I'm just saying, to me, it feels like as a city, we're spending money in marketing and drawing people here, which we definitely want to do and want to continue to do it. But we also have some very specific goals that I think we haven't yet agreed to as a city that we need to agree to, and then figure out, does some of the activity that you're doing, because you're very, very good at it, help drive those other specific metrics that I think the council still needs to come up with. So anyway, that's just my general comment. I like everything you do. As you know, I've said this before, and I would just like to spend more time with you at some point to talk more about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I just respond quickly?
Yes.
You know, I think what's so interesting is when the pandemic first hit, the first thing I said as the CEO is, oh my goodness, we're going to lose a lot of businesses downtown. And I think it's been incredibly amazing to see so many new businesses popping up. However, I do understand the concern, Eric, that you're mentioning. The thing about marketing is if you don't have brand awareness and we're not plugging St. Helena every time and people are just hearing Napa Valley, we're getting lost. We're getting lost in that messaging, and people need to go, oh my gosh, St. Helena, it is the place to go in Napa Valley. That is how we get more people in our hotel rooms, people booking longer stays, spending money on Main Street, going to restaurants. That is how we do it. And so the importance of influencers are, it's one of the number one forms of marketing is having influencers here. And everybody talking about St. Helena. The more influencers you have, the more digital ad campaigns you have running, the more engagement. It's just instilling in people's brains. And when they plan a trip, they come and visit. And that's why it's so incredibly important. And another thing to touch on, if we don't have that and we don't have that excitement, what business is going to want to come and pop up in an empty space, right? But if these businesses see all the marketing efforts that are being done and they go to our Instagram and go, wow, they've got so much marketing for this town. Look at that great logo. Look at this, look at that. Businesses want to be here. They want to be a part of it. And so that's what I would say to you. I think we need to work together and address what you're saying, Eric, but also understand the importance of marketing and how key it is and vital for a city.
Yeah, I completely agree with your comments, and I think this is very much about branding. I just don't know if this town knows who it is. Our election is a perfect example of that. So somehow and I think this conversation helps feed the broader conversation about who are we? Who is St. Helena? What do we want to be in the future, right, when we grow up? So I think there's a little bit more of room there. I love what you've done, and I love the work that you're doing with Visit Napa Valley. I'm one of your biggest fans, actually. And because of that, I feel I can continue to push on you and get more and get more and get more. So I just would like to see a little bit more connectivity between destination and St. Helena as a brand, but that brand tied to our downtown. Like, for instance, I think the world is going to come here to get wine. We know that, but what are we doing to open up our doors downtown? And how do we find a way to supplement what you're doing, not detract from it, but add an additional story in there somewhere to help focus on St. Helena historic downtown. Anyway, that's it. I mean, there's plenty to talk about there.
Thank you for the comments, and thank you for being here. Are there any other council comments? I'm going to look to the city manager. Mr. Hardy, any thoughts before we?
Yes, just briefly, following on what Councilmember Hall just said, there are brands and there are brands, and I say that because I think there's a difference between often and intentionally often between image and reality, and what I think St. Helena needs to have a vigorous downtown, an exciting downtown, is the content. We need the reality of downtown to fulfill the image that we emphasize in the branding. And my sense, I could be wrong, but my sense is that part of our challenge has been to close the gap between the image and the content. And so I'm going to be very interested as we work together moving forward to learn in dialogue how we do that together, because I don't think the chamber can do it by itself. I'm quite sure it can't. And I think the council has an important role to play in that. And I think, getting maximum synergy in terms of what the chamber does and what the council does is going to be the key to having the kind of vibrant downtown that becomes its own attraction, because that's always where you want to end up, in a position where the word of mouth advertising itself brings people to your door. Thank you.
Thank you. And so I'll bring it back to the city manager in terms of direction for this evening. This is an item that will come back through our budget, and the chamber is looking for some additional funding. Is this a part of the conversation where we revisit as well when we see a little more numbers?
So, yes, thank you, Mayor. At the budget workshop, we had a good conversation about the marketing campaign, and clearly there is an upside on our hotel tax revenue forecasting. So as you recall, we're currently programming approximately $2.1 million in hotel tax revenue. That's substantially lower than our fiscal year 18-19 number of more than 3.2 million. Our data in the month of May is going to reveal, as we contrast it with prior years, probably enhanced performance. We just don't have a good read on that yet, but we received good feedback at the budget workshop on the marketing campaign and that strategy. Tonight, in terms of the contract, we attached the contract to the staff report, and in the staff report, we note the consistent funding. The funding since FY 2015 has been constant, the same number since 2015. Given the importance of the business recovery focus and the fact that that contract hasn't changed for about 6 years, we did apply a 5% increase in our budget draft. When we presented the budget to you at that workshop, it included a 5% growth factor on just the base contract, separate from the marketing contract. So if you have any feedback on that, we're happy to receive that tonight. Our plan from a process standpoint would be to bring you an updated annual contract with the chamber, probably at the meeting of June 22nd. And that, I think the council has provided some helpful feedback on synergies and references to the vacancies. And I think we can work together with the chamber at adjusting some of the language in the contract scope of work to address those ideas and recommendations, and bring this annual contract to you for consideration and approval at the meeting of June 22nd.
Very good. And then would at that point we consider the additional funding? I mean, we're looking at the increase, the percentage increase, but at that point also, would we be considering the additional funding?
The staff felt that at the prior workshop, we had good feedback on that at the budget workshop. So we're building the budget around a $100,000 investment in business recovery. And we'll have a chance to talk more about what the revenues are looking like on the general fund side on the meeting of June 8th. So we'll provide an update on the general fund revenues then. And that may, depending on what we see, that could influence your additional direction regarding the budget development.
Okay, very good. So tonight, do you feel like you have enough from us to proceed?
Just want to make sure that if there's any additional recommendations with respect to the annual agreement, the $210,000 agreement that would be augmented by 5% in the budget, that I receive that now before we bring you back a draft proposal at the meeting of the 22nd.
I'm supportive of the 5% increase. Frankly, I think the chamber's contract is woefully underfunded, especially if we want to talk about things like really that fall into a category of economic development, which is really the responsibility mainly of the city, and we don't really have that kind of a program. So I would like to also take the time to compliment the chamber and Amy in particular. The growth of the chamber in terms of its leadership and the work it's done since I've been on the council has been tremendous. I can see it from 2015 to now, just a tremendous growth in terms of the work that you do and the ability to communicate the story about the work that you do is really good. And the communication has improved immensely. The services have improved immensely. and the status of the chamber has grown immensely in the short time that I've been on the council. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you so much. And don't make me cry. Thank you.
Councilmember Chateau.
I was just going to note in the contract under G, it's just a detail, but you had Jingle All the Way in there still, and I think that that's changed. So we don't have to go into discussion of it, but I just noted that it probably should be updated.
Yes, and we have in prior conversations with Amy, we have she has a concept that would be a little different this year than Jingle All the Way. She's welcome to talk briefly about that if you'd like, but I think the number would be the same, so we wouldn't adjust any of the investments for a winter holiday decorations event.
Okay, great.
Okay, very good. I think we need to, in the matter of time, we need to keep moving here. And so what we'll do is we'll look forward to hearing more, Amy, about the new ideas for the holidays at a further meeting. Mark, I believe you feel you have the support now to move forward.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And Amy, again, thank you. Thank you to the chamber. Normally, in a normal circumstance, you do a wonderful job. In an extraordinary circumstance, you did just even beyond that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Appreciate the support.
Okay, right. So we'll move off of that now. We'll move on to item 11.3. This is our discussion on bike facilities along South Crane Avenue from Grayson Avenue to Sulphur Springs Avenue, direction on the preferred facility. And I believe we have Mr. Wenger is going to be helping us forward in this discussion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and council members, as you may remember, this was before you at your second meeting in April. It regards improvements to Grayson as well as South Crane associated with that rehabilitation project. And part of the improvements with that project include bike lane facilities. And in the discussion in April, it included 4 different segments that were laid out for you on the overall project. 2 of those segments were on Grayson and 2 were on South Crane. And as we showed in the staff report, the options chosen for segment 1 on Grayson included installation of class 3 bike lanes. For segment 2, we got clear direction, and that included implementing class 2 bike lanes on the second segment of Grayson. But for segments 3 and 4, which was South Crane, decisions were not made in April, and the council asked that we bring it back. So tonight is kind of an overview again of segments 3 and 4 on South Crane. Segment 3 is the section from Grayson down to the southerly end of the school. And in that segment, there are 3 distinct different options available. And most of these are shown on the exhibits that were attached to the staff report. But in this segment, which is segment 3, the 3 options are converting the walkway on the east side of the road to a class 1 bike and pedestrian facility. The second option would be to install class 2 bicycle lanes, which would require elimination of the parking on the east side, as well as widening the pavement on the west side. And then option 3 in this segment would be including a class 3 bike route, which would just be installation of sharrows on the pavement. Segment 4, which is a segment south of the school, there are 3 options available there as well. The first one would be installation of a class 1 bike path on the east side of the road. It would require undergrounding of overhead utilities that are currently in that location, as well as extension of a class 1 bike path for the rest of the length of South Crane. The second option would be to install class 2 bike lanes. Installation of class 2 bike lanes in this segment would require widening of the paving. The paving is currently a little bit over 22 feet wide, and we'd have to widen that 4 to 5 feet on either side. And then the third option would be to install class 3 bike route facilities similar to segment 2, segment 3, which would just simply be sharrows on the road. In the staff report, we outline various estimated expenditures. First of all, I will point out that the installation of a class 1 bike path in segments 3 and 4 would be expensive. It would cost somewhere in the range of around $850,000 to $900,000. And as opposed to if class 2 bike lanes were installed, like I mentioned, there would be minor road widening as well as some striping, and that cost would be approximately $200,000. If we went to class 3, it would be a class 3 bike route, it would simply be striping along with the new paving that's proposed with the project. So with that, what we're looking for tonight is some direction from council for segments 3 and 4. If the council opts to install class 2 bike lane facilities in segment 3, we will have to add the red curbing and no parking to the resolution that was attached to the staff report. But if you decide to either go to a class 3 facility or even put in class 3 until someday the funds could be available for installation of a class 1 bike lane for that entire length, that's a possibility as well. So with that, I will end my presentation and be happy to answer any questions.
I will open up to the council just a moment. I have one question. Do we know, and I think as we look a little later in the agenda, we're going to be getting into our pavement and paving plan. Do we have an idea when the South Crane area is on our list for coming in for its rebuilding, repaving? Do we have a target yet for that?
I believe we were targeting fiscal year 22, 23, if I'm not mistaken. That was the initial thrust when the contract was awarded to BKF Consultants for improvements. That certainly is flexible. I mean, it would be a shovel-ready project if we give them direction now, because we do have other paving projects that are slated for fiscal year 21, 22, but it would be about a year out.
Okay. Are there any initial council? Thank you. Are there any initial council comments or input here? And not seeing any, I will open it to public comment and then bring it back. Cindy, seeing any public comment?
I am. Carlotta, I am going to allow you to speak. You have 4 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Carlota Sainato, Program Coordinator with the Napa County Bicycle Coalition. Our team has been following the Grayson South Crane discussion for the last several months since the initial public outreach meetings were held in October 2020. We've attended the public outreach meetings, ATSC, city council meetings, in addition to reaching out to city staff independently with our feedback on these corridors. We would like to voice our continued support for a Class 1 pathway on South Crane for the entire corridor. South Crane is frequently traveled by people who are biking, walking, or running, either for transportation or recreation, and a Class 1 path would accommodate all of these road users and meet the demand that's already existing. This facility meets the needs of the several different stakeholders involved with this corridor. It provides the safest, most separated bike and pedestrian facility for residents, and particularly for families who are traveling to and from local schools and Crane Park. This option does not remove parking from residents or the loading zone from the primary school, and a Class 1 does not require widening the roadway like Class 2 bike lanes would. Widening the roadway, even if it's for Class 2 bike lanes in the context of South Crane, could encourage increased speeding because motorists see a wider, more open road that they can go faster on. While we recognize that a Class 1 path requires additional resources compared to Class 2 bike lanes, we strongly believe that these crucial investments are needed in order to provide safe and accessible active transportation infrastructure for riders of all ages and abilities. One element that was not discussed that we and several residents that we've heard from believe is crucial for South Crane is traffic calming. Speeding on South Crane, especially by motorists bypassing Highway 29, has already been identified as a key concern on this corridor, and the likelihood of speeding will only increase with a smooth, newly paved road. So given the presence of the primary school, residences, and Crane Park, we urge City Council to direct staff to integrate traffic calming elements into the South Crane repaving process. So again, we strongly support a Class 1 path. Knowing that that may take longer. In the interim, we support Sharrows, Class 3 Sharrows with traffic calming. This is an important opportunity for St. Helena to make a considerable step towards its climate and health goals. So I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the comments. I would just like to ask, are you still with us, Carlota?
Yes.
In terms of traffic calming measures, what specifically would those be from your perspective?
I think that would require a little bit of a deeper look by city staff, perhaps by the consultants on it, to determine what would be appropriate for this corridor. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but
okay.
I just know it's important.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll see if we have additional public comment.
There is. Hi, Mark. I'm allowing you to speak. You can address the council. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and City Manager. I think this is an opportunity for a paradigm shift here with the city. We certainly need to reduce the vehicle miles traveled and the car traffic in the city. So whether it's a Class 1 or a Class 2, I think, either of those options are fantastic. I think a Class 1 option based on the staff report appears to be a little bit cost prohibitive and may take, 6 or even more years to implement. And I'm hoping that South Crane would be, rehabilitated and repaved well before that. So I guess what I want to make sure that everybody understands is if you put in 2 Class 2 bike lanes, those do actually calm traffic. They're striped, they do slow down the traffic. You would only have to lose, parking on the school side and the tennis court side. You would not lose traffic on the neighborhood side. And I'm sitting out here as I've been watching the city council meeting all night, and there's literally 2 or 3 cars parked on the Little League, tennis court side. And there's 1 car parked on the neighbor, the housing side. So there's plenty of parking available, on South Crane if you were to lose parking on one side, which is all that's necessary. So to spend $150,000 and get 2 Class 2 bike lanes going south and north on South Crane, which, as the Biking Coalition noted, is a well-traveled and traffic, bike and pedestrian corridor. I think that, there's a great opportunity there. At the same time, the school district, has issues, and I'm probably going to run out of time. All the ingress and egress of the school, primary school, is supposed to happen on Grayson Street. The school district has been able to, get the teachers to park in the school parking lot. And obviously, as of recent, we know that the school district has been able to, get the parents to understand that they need to do certain things. Now they're all lining up for parking. So I think if there was no parking on the school side and tennis court side of South Crane, that the school district could easily work with, the parents of the school children, and they would be adaptable because they've adapted, the teachers have adapted, they've adapted recently with COVID. And I don't know to what extent any of you read all of what I sent you, but there's a whole lot of school district issues there. So this would actually help the school district meet their requirements for the mitigations that they were supposed to have met with building that school there. So it could really be a win-win for everybody. So those are, the salient points of my comments. I could go on for, a long time because this has been a long time coming, but it would be really great to see the pedestrian and bicycling safety measures implemented. And I agree with what the Bike Coalition said, is that there are needs for traffic calming as well on South Crane, and that's supposed to be part of this entire corridor sort of redo. So thank you.
Thank you for the comments. We'll bring it back now to, we'll see if there's additional public comment.
There is. Patrick, I'm going to allow you to talk. You can unmute yourself and address the council.
Thank you very much. Patrick Band, Executive Director, Napa County Bicycle Coalition. I just wanted to add 2 quick observations. I really appreciate the comments by Mr. Smithers. We do disagree. Unfortunately, Class 2 bike facilities alone are not considered a traffic calming measure, and I'm sure that Mr. Wanger can support that observation. And in fact, they can give the perception that the roadway is wider for a driver than it actually may be, and encourage even further speeding and unsafe driving behavior. I also wanted to note the Bicycle Coalition, as part of our Safe Routes to Schools program, recently completed a public opinion survey conducted by EMC Research out of Oakland of 450 parents in Napa County with kids in the K-8 public school system. As part of that work, we found that 93% of parents with young kids in our public schools feel that walking and biking is a good way for their kids to get physical exercise. 85% said that walking and biking is a good way for them to spend quality time with their kids. And 76% said that they would generally like their kids to be able to safely walk and bike to or from school. At the same time, though, 90% of parents had significant concerns about safety and particularly about speeding. And a similar number, 93%, said that they would feel most comfortable with a separated facility away from vehicle traffic for their kids to be comfortable walking and biking to school. And 89% of parents in this research supported reducing speeds on corridors adjacent to local schools. So we certainly understand that investment in a Class 1 facility is not a small step to take, that it will take several years to coordinate undergrounding with PG&E, but it is the right long-term solution for this corridor, and something that the Bicycle Coalition strongly supports as that long-term option moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the public comment. Any additional public comment?
There's no additional public comment.
Okay, so back to the council. Thank you. And I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau with a hand up.
Yes, thank you so much. I agree that doing the Class 1 is the right long-term solution, and I'm in support of doing that, starting with the Class 3. I also, the last time I talked to the primary school principal, she was really strongly felt she did not want to lose the parking because of parents and staff and the way the parking situation was. So I wouldn't feel comfortable making that decision without having her weigh in again, which I didn't have today, because for me, I strongly feel that we should do the right thing and have it be the protected Class 1 long-term for these kids. And I like the fact that we're going to underground with PG&E, and I would hope that the PG&E, we could be aggressive about going after grants, considering the climate change benefit, and having it be our primary school to help us do that, since that's a significant part of the funding.
Thank you. Additional council comment? I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. Well, I've given us a fair amount of thought today. I'll put it in a personal perspective to start. It brought back memories just thinking about the issues here of the 2 years I lived in San Francisco and made a very deliberate decision not to use cars at all. I wouldn't even take a ride from a friend in those 2 years, and I bicycled everywhere, commuted to work. I wrecked 3 bicycles and took one trip to the emergency room while commuting rather aggressively on San Francisco streets. It was not anything but a demonstration of how the sense of invulnerability one has in one's youth can lead to appalling judgment. But it did really teach me a lot about what is and what isn't safe for bicycling. So I like the class 1 approach as a long-term plan. I'm supportive of that. I think that is the right thing to do in the corridor. I think the funding is going to be a challenge, and although I admire Councilmember Chateau's optimism, I don't think we can expect a whole lot of support from PG&E in terms of funding or fund seeking, and that timing may be difficult. But nevertheless, well, and the timing on undergrounding may be undergrounding funding may actually be abysmal. I'd have to refer that question to staff for an inquiry, but it seems to me that the project undergrounding on Main Street involved using up available credits of some sort. I don't remember the discussion in detail, but I suspect we're a very low priority now for undergrounding projects of that sort. That's something worth exploring. But for right now, I think class 3 makes sense, and then we'll see as time goes on whether we have a viable way to make that class 1.
Thank you. And I'm seeing Vice Mayor Doring.
I agree with Councilmember Chateau and Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. And Councilmember Hall, any comments here?
Actually, I'm going to disagree. My general feeling is similar to our last conversation about funding nonprofits. I just don't believe that we have the money. It's $1 million, and tying the project to PG&E commitment makes me extremely nervous. So I'm all for doing something right now to improve, keeping the costs down and moving on our own accord. That's how I would kind of view that. So I would vote for the simpler of the 2 options.
I'm sorry, Councilmember, which of the options?
The cheaper, quicker, which was just the class 2.
Okay. Thank you. I've got some comments. I'm seeing a wonderful opportunity here. If we're looking at perhaps South Crane being rehabilitated and repaved in the next 2 years or so, if we make a commitment to a conversation with the school district. Also, we may have a partner in Adventist Health and Blue Zones who also want to talk about walking paths and bicycling in our town. It may be that if we can make a decision today on sort of an interim look at what we're doing, that we'll hold the line until we get into the repaving. By the time we get there, or as we work towards there, developing a conversation with the school and Adventist Health Blue Zones, and possibly also PG&E. There may be something there. We have developed a much better communication with them. My thought is that if we commit, and I'm looking at the cost of the class twos as 200,000. My thought, and with the recommendations of the Bicycle Coalition, my thought would be to move forward with the class threes with the idea that we're going to really work on a conversation with partners, the school district, Blue Zones, et cetera, to see if we can all come together on a plan for that class one with PG&E's help. So while we're rehabilitating that road in 2 years, we're trying to get ourselves all set for this sort of new look at how we get bicycle and pedestrian traffic through that area. And so I'd be hesitant on the class twos right now because of that cost. We put $200,000 in it, and in 2 years we'd be getting back in there for repaving. So my thought would be to move forward with class threes, to look at what traffic calming measures we could put in there, what additional things, but really try to move a conversation about 2 years from now, having a really fresh approach to that area that serves the schools, the parks. I think we have a great opportunity with working with partners. So that's where I am with that. Any other comments on where we are? I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy.
Well, I do support starting off with a class three. I think in terms of setting expectations, we have to be prepared for the possibility that as we get more information and pursue, explore what is and isn't possible in terms of funding from various sources, we may find it infeasible to complete class one. I don't think that we know enough today to know that we can make that work. But I'm fine with starting off with an approach that assumes that it's possible.
And I'm supportive of that as well. I guess my thought is that if we can't make it work on the class one, as we redesign that road and rebuild it, we get a really good class two system in place that has the traffic calming as well as the class twos. As a fall, we can't go off the class one. But for the interim, I think the three with the traffic calming and good, strong conversation about possibilities with the partners. Is that, or I think we have consensus, I believe, in terms of moving forward with the threes and the conversation with the class one. With that,
well, no, we don't. So that's a little fuzzy for me. We are going to go forward with a class one, as I understand it, right? It's not just a conversation. We may hit a roadblock that tells us we can't do it, but I think the plan is to go forward with a class one. I think our staff needs a little bit more certainty, Mayor, but I'm open to a discussion.
I'm certainly supportive of that.
Okay.
And I'm looking, I believe that's what I heard from Councilmember Chateau and Hardy.
Yes.
Yes, I'm just stating I think we may hit a roadblock. I don't know if we will or won't, but I think that needs to be part of the conversation up front so that we don't set expectations we can't fulfill.
Very good.
And I just wanted, for a point of clarification, to be sure that our city engineer is comfortable from a design perspective. We would be designing the class three now and not designing the class one at this time. I want to make sure that that's the approach that we would take internally in preparation for the overlay project.
Yes, I think what I'll do based on the council direction that I believe I'm hearing is just instruct the design engineer to go ahead and plan on the rehabilitation project to include class three bike lanes, but we will be pursuing an option for class one kind of along with that. Not necessarily that they design that right now, but that's something that we're going to pursue. So yeah, I'm clear.
And Mr. Wenger, in that conversation, would you be asking the questions about the traffic calming I mean, is that a conversation that the Bike Coalition could bring to you?
Yes, in short, there's a number of tools in the toolbox for that, and I think it does deserve a little bit more little look, but we can work with the consultant and the Bike Coalition and see what we can come up with.
Okay. So with that, I do believe we've got consensus on moving forward with option one. Is there a motion from the council?
Sure, I'll move that we do option one and work with the Napa Bike Coalition on traffic calming measures and options.
I will second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Chateau?
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy?
Yes.
Councilmember Hall?
No.
Vice Mayor Doring?
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth?
Yes. Okay, very good. Thank you. And we'll move on now. We're going to move to 11.4. Let me just pull back here. This is our consideration of a resolution authorizing the city. I thought I had a consideration of a resolution authorizing the city manager or designee to execute a lease with Napa Valley Community College District, NVCCD, regarding use of a portion of the Napa Valley College of St. Helena Upper Valley campus for City Hall and Police Department municipal purposes. I'm going to hand this to City Manager Mark Prestwich in just a moment here. Before I do, I want to thank our Vice Mayor, Paul Doring, for an incredible amount of work on this, and also former City Council member Mary Koberstein, who participated greatly as well. I just want to make sure to express thanks for the work, and we may hear a little bit more about it as we go, but I wanted to start the conversation that way and hand it now to Mr. Prestwich.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to echo your comments because Vice Mayor Doring and former Council member Koberstein were really instrumental to helping this initial lease draft get started. And what you see tonight is really substantially similar to the document that we began with. I also want to acknowledge and thank the representatives of the Napa Valley College and their governing board for their willingness to explore opportunities for partnership with the city and collaboration. This has been a long journey, but the resulting lease that you have before you tonight, I think, is a lease that benefits both the college and the city. The discussions over the past year have helped also identify a number of ancillary benefits that come from this partnership. We won't get into all of those tonight, but there are certainly more opportunities as we move forward together. The lease is attached to the staff report. It is a 5-year proposed lease for portions of the building that are unused by the campus. We would share space, and the college still retains control over a significant portion of the building. There's approximately 8,000 square feet that would be used for City Hall purposes, as well as our police operations. The administrative portion of the building, which we would describe as the non-police side, the expectation is that we transition into that building in 3 months. There is some relief in case the review by the state architects office takes time. We do anticipate that that's necessary. And then within 6 months for the police department operations, a little more complex, a little more tenant improvements needed. And the lease does include a 2-year optional rent term extension to this, so up to 7 years. We would share our pro rata share of the utility costs for the building. There's some language that speaks to potential pro rata share of roof improvements, should those be needed down the road. And I also want to mention that the landscaping would be the city's responsibility moving forward. There is a rental offset, so the cost per square foot is $2.50 per square foot. There is a rental offset if the city provides street sweeping of the parking lot and enhanced street sweeping during the leaf season. And as you know, there are a lot of trees in that parking lot. There are some minor ADA improvements that are needed, approximately $21,000. We do currently estimate the tenant improvements to cost about $500,000 base. There may be, that does not account for the moving costs or possibly some additional site utility work. And with that, I am happy to share a screen of how that lays out. Should you be interested in seeing how the building lays out? And I'll pause for any questions you have.
I certainly would like to see the screen, and then we'll see if there are any comments.
Sure, we'll take a look real quick. Can you see the image on my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll orient you. My cursor here is next to this light blue rectangle. This is the entrance to the building today. And the administrative section would be in this area here. We literally don't need to move a wall or really a desk. We might rotate some desks here in the front. But other than that, there's not much work here. We would adjust this storage room and the copy room to become office space for our Human Resources Division of the Administrative Services Department. This area to the right, which we know is the library today, would become the planning department, planning and building department. The planning director and the senior planner in offices here. We would construct an office here in this location. The building department on building division on this side, some staff, and then storage and our large format plotter in the back of this area. The purple room, let me jump past this spot here, but to the purple room down this corridor, this is the first classroom today. This classroom would be converted into a director's office for our Director of Public Works, our city engineer, their executive assistant. And this is the only department that's split within the building. So the other staff members in Public Works would be in this location. This would be the assistant director's office and two additional workstations, desks that haven't been fully designed at this point. But this would be our management analyst and our junior engineer. This is a restroom that's existing today. There are some minor improvements to this. If we walk down this corridor to the left, this is the large glass room that is dividable. This is a beautiful room. It would be available to the city to use pursuant to their fee schedule. And we would rent this by the hour, essentially. The other half of this is actually, when we look back at this Public Works office, this is a room that's also dividable. The college is retaining this second half of this room, and we will use the existing divider to separate. And they have 3 staff members that will be located here. This is the kitchen and a meeting room, dining area. This will be retained by the college. When you walk in the front door, you notice that there's also a breezeway out to the right here that faces Pope off to the right, running top to bottom. This breezeway, we would add a wall here with a door and convert the existing drinking fountain into a sink for a kitchen. This would become a break room, and it would have indoor-outdoor space. So there's a little bit of a patio here, but we would place some form of a wall here to protect. We'll get to the police wing in a second, but this is associated with protection of the police department staff, but it also creates some really nice indoor-outdoor space for staff. And this would be a shared break room. So we're trying to achieve economies of scale with this building by, and also opportunities for helping the city staff get to know each other. But everyone in the building, police and non-police staff, would be using the same break room space. This area in pink here, reddish, this is the police department. So we would have the dispatch office and dispatchers in this location. There would be a public window off the existing corridor. We would screen the glass so that we can see out, but people cannot see into this. I'm sorry, that really is more in this space here in the red. But the police dispatch would be in this area. A public counter would provide service here. And then we would have an interview room in this location that similar to the interview room that we have in the existing police department. This second classroom that's on the other side of a mechanical room that exists, this would be the chief's office, lieutenant's office, a shared sergeant space, and an additional workstation or table. And then this back room, which is today the science room, we would remove some of the desks in the room to create some additional workstations for report writing for our officers. It would also double as a training room. So there's an existing screen here and configurable space in the middle. So the police department can have briefings, there can be training in this room. There would be some form of outdoor storage in the existing patio area here. And this rectangle that you see off the side of the building would become a locker room and shower facility for primarily the police department and access in this area. So we would also add a wall here along with this wall to control this space. This is likely a modular facility that we would rent. And so this is an additional cost to the tenant improvements, but fairly modest if it's rented over the term of the lease. The last thing I would mention is that this building has very nice indoor-outdoor space. So in addition, I think many of us have seen the interior courtyard here. This is beautiful space for community programming, but also for indoor-outdoor meetings with staff, community members. We imagine tables in this area. Off the planning department here, we have a beautiful outdoor patio that can be a shared space for outdoor meetings. It's a very COVID-friendly building and a lot of opportunities for ventilation, which is consistent with our California public health recommendations. This patio on the other side here is certainly a patio that we can use for outdoor space, but it's a little less accessible. So I hope that's a nice overview of how we fit in, but it is a very nice space, and I think we fit into the building very nicely, and we're looking forward to that transition.
Great, thank you for the presentation. Am I seeing an office for the vice mayor there at all anywhere on the? Thank you very much for the overview. I think that's helpful. It gives us all a picture. Any initial comments or questions? I don't know if Vice Mayor Doring wants to give us a little insight on the process. That might be helpful just getting moving here.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. Thank you to former council member Koberstein, who really was dogged in terms of staying focused on this lease. You know, there was a point in time where the negotiations ended and there was some political work that still needed to be done, and it was done. I commend the board, the college board, for sticking to it and showing a willingness to become a partner with us. I do think this is an extremely valuable opportunity for the city because it frees up some other spaces that we can focus in on. You know, this lease evolved quite a bit. I know Mark said it hasn't changed that much, but from my perspective, it has changed a lot. And I know that our city attorney, Ethan, was involved in this, and I thank him for his insight and for his ability to churn out the document as it was evolving over time. So thank you very much to all who have participated. Of course, I recommend that we approve this lease. You know, one of the issues for me is it came in late is the high cost. I would say the high cost of the hardening of the law enforcement part of the facility at $500,000. You know, I get dragged along and I finally say yes to things. You can ask my wife that. That's my personality. $500,000 is a lot of money to spend, but in the scheme of all of what we're doing in the city, I think it's money well spent. And I think it goes to issues like staff morale, staff safety, sort of just a brightness in life. I mean, this is just a beautiful facility that we're all going to benefit from. And we are also able to fulfill our mission and the college's mission, the educational part of it, which a number of folks in our community raised issues about. And I think we've sufficiently addressed those issues. We can do both. We can juggle two balls at the same time and meet our obligations and also our respective missions. So thank you to the college, especially Rosada Segura, who I've worked with on this, and others, Rafael Rios, Jeff Dodd, to name a few. There was a lot of, negotiations, I'll just put it that way. So thank you, Mayor, for your compliments. And again, thank you to Councilmember Koberstein for all the work that she did. Very much deserved praise for her.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us that insight. I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau with a hand up.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Vice Mayor D.A.R.E. and former Councilmember Koberstein for your work on this. I think you really did do a lot of work, and I appreciate everybody that has worked on this. I wonder, I don't want to nickel and dime, but when I see that, and when I see that 21,000 for the bathroom and the ADA improvements, I wonder if that's something that we could go back to the college and say that would be a cost that we would like to see if they would pick up, since it's theirs building. So that's a question. Is that something that we can do? And then the other cost saving I'm wondering about is can we explore long-term if it makes sense to use that big space there for our council chambers? I know there's some concerns with the glass, all glass windows, and we would need to look at the technology. So not something quick, but long-term, can we look at, is that something that could also save us money?
I'll address the ADA issue first. There was a point in time when we were touring the building with architects that one of the architects that was providing a proposal to us expressed some concern about cost, possibly climbing significantly just associated with the ADA improvements. Our thinking today is that it's more in the neighborhood of about $21,000. And if the council's direction is to request that the language be modified before the board takes action, and really this is the direction we're asking the council for tonight, is to authorize the city manager pursuant to the city attorney's review to enter into a lease that's substantially similar in format and structure as this lease that you're looking at. But if your direction is to ask for that, we can request that. The ADA improvements would stay with the building, and the college owns that asset. So that is something that we could ask and receive. Either that's a deal point that we add to the city's request, or I'm happy to carry that message for the council if you'd like.
Mark, I'm going to just jump in for a moment. We're going to need a motion to extend beyond 9 o'clock. I don't want to interrupt the discussion, but I want to see if we can extend for an extra half hour. We've got a couple more items, if there's support for that.
I'll make a motion to extend to 9:30.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Chateau,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Vice Mayor D.A.R.E.
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. So back to Mark. I'm sorry to interrupt if you want to carry us forward.
Okay. So, and then with respect to the glass rooms at the end of the corridor there, certainly we can take a look at the way technology has evolved and evaluate whether there are opportunities to potentially move council meetings to that location. It will be a very nice room for community meetings that I envision us having down the road. There's a little additional due diligence we would need to do on the meeting room site.
Are there some other council comments before I open it to public comment? I'm seeing Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor and former Councilmember Koberstein, for all the work on this. It's fantastic. As well, Mark, I know you've been very, very involved over the past couple of years on this, so thank you very much. I just had two quick comments with regard to Anna's comments on talking with college about the ADA. One way, if all of us agree, one way we might do that is not necessarily tie it to ADA. Maybe it's just simply seeing if the college will contribute $5 or $6 a square foot for tenant improvements, regardless of what they are, whether it's ADA or otherwise. So it's just a flat number. They can budget for it. We can use it wherever we see fit. And that's basically it. The only thing I noticed in the lease itself is while we have this set of plans, there's actually no reference in the lease to this specific set of plans or these designs. There's TI work that's referenced, but there's nothing actually incorporated in the lease. And I just wondered if Paul or Ethan, you see any issues there with that? Or if not, then no worries. But it looks like the plans themselves are not an exhibit to the lease.
Right, and that was somewhat intentional because at the time that we were negotiating it, we didn't have a specific sense of what the tenant improvements were going to be, and we wanted to keep it flexible on our side. And the community college didn't object to that, and so we just decided to retain that flexibility.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other council questions or comments before I open to public comments? And I'm seeing none. So I will go to Cindy, see if we have any public comment.
We do. Mary, I'm going to allow you to talk. You can address the council.
Okay, thanks. I want to thank Mark for letting me know that this item would be on tonight's agenda. Believe it or not, I'm not hovering over everything you're doing, but this is really important. I thank Mark and Paul and Jeff for your kind words. And I thank Anna and Eric for your comments, particularly the ADA comments. I don't think your comments are inconsistent with the relatively short term of this lease. But overall, I got onto this meeting to say that I'm thrilled for our City Hall employees and the police department that this opportunity arose and we were able to make it happen. You know, over the past several years, we've only seen their working conditions go from bad to worse. And besides a better work environment for our employees, I think our residents, contractors, other people who need to visit City Hall for business or other reasons are going to enjoy a much improved and welcoming environment compared to Main Street or Railroad Avenue, where I don't even think they could go in the door. But anyway, this lease opens a door to, I think, real opportunity to put some of our city properties to work for the community. I hope you will begin to engage in the big picture planning, the creative financial solutions, the public-private partnerships that can actually happen because this is happening. So I thank my former council members for giving me the opportunity to work on this with Paul. And I want to echo Paul and Mark and thank Dr. Kraft and our counterparts on the College Board of Trustees. We worked together during COVID, kind of in secret and kind of a crazy way of working to exchange ideas and documents with the intention that we were working primarily to serve our respective constituents and do something really good. But I think in the end, we were able to make this transaction come to fruition by focusing on the benefits for both sides. And in my mind, that's the way how you can make things happen and move forward. So thank you all. I hope you approve this. I hope to see you there in a few months or by the fall, the latest. Thanks.
Thank you for the comments, Ms. Koberstein, and thank you again for all the effort in this. It's truly a huge moment, and recognizing how much we want to provide the staff with a building like this and the community. So thank you. So I'll bring it back to the council. Do we have I have a few comments. Any other comments from council? I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you, Mayor Ellsworth. This is a milestone accomplishment in terms of what it does for the city. I can't really say enough about that. It removes a real log jam in a certain sense in terms of providing a desirable workspace for city staff, while at the same time opening up city properties for other possibilities in a way that was hard to really grapple with as long as our city hall needs were kind of up in the air. So my hat's off to everyone who worked on it. The city manager and Vice Mayor Doring and former council member Koberstein. This is huge for us, and it's I don't know, maybe the timing is just kind of symbolic, but to be, moving out of the pandemic rules as you do the work that you need to move into the Napa Valley College space. I can't think of a better timing for it. So that's huge, and I look forward to seeing it done. Thank you.
Thank you. And so just to sort of round this out, thanking everybody that participated in this. It is momentous. It opens up possibilities in other areas of town. It's an example of what partnership can be. And we saw Napa Valley College as a partner through the vaccinations, working with Adventist Health. We see this as a great opportunity for partnership. And so thanking the college board, thanking Dr. Kraft, thanking everybody that participated in this, and wanting our staff to know that this effort, we want to see them in a place that they deserve for the kind of work they've been putting in towards the city. And so when is the move-in scheduled, Mr. Prestwich? When can we get in there?
Unfortunately, it's too early to answer that question. The cost of the improvements, any improvements over essentially $110,000 collectively, have to go to the state architect. It appears that it may drive a different form of design of the construction plans as well, which I do not have an adjustment, but we may need to make an adjustment to the contract. But the college tells me that these plans will not be stuck at the state architect. These are plans that are fairly easy to review. We're not doing anything other than essentially creating about 8 offices within the building and a break room. There's some minor additional work and this exterior storage area, restroom, utility work, and a wall. But this is a fairly light touch, and that's been our focus and objective through this, is to reduce the cost of the tenant improvements, leave a light touch on the building, and try to reuse furniture, et cetera, and to use their existing furniture and storage assets. So I think it's probably more than 4 months at this point. The college will consider the lease in approximately 3 weeks. And if there's any changes that you would like me to communicate to them, we would want to share those with them, obviously, before their meeting, where they would take action in approximately 3 weeks.
Oh, okay. And then one other question was, it's a 5-year lease and there's a 2-year option. And is that up to us if we want to extend?
Yes, there's, we can look at the specific language. The attorney, our city attorney can assist here as well, but it will require, I believe, City Attorney Walsh, the consent of I don't think it's unilaterally our decision to simply extend, but if we do extend, I should mention that the cost for the first 5 years are fixed. In years 6 and 7, it would adjust by a consumer price index. Modestly to move with inflation, just in those 2 years.
It is unilateral. I mean, we have an option.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Very good. Okay, with that, I think we're at the point where I would invite a motion. The recommendation is in authorizing or adopting the resolution to execute the lease. So is there a motion with the staff recommendation?
I preempted the attorney. Ethan, did you have any other comments? I jumped in. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
You were right. So I don't have any more comments.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Could I just get a point of sorry, could I get a point of clarification? Is the 21, the ADA improvements included in that motion, asking the college to take on that cost?
Well, I honestly, I was thinking that was within the discretion of the city administrator, and I didn't need to, a city manager, excuse me, add it, but I'm happy to if that is helpful.
I just wanted to know if that, because Mark said he needed clarification. City Manager Prestwich said if he needed clarification. So do you need that in the motion or not?
I think it could be helpful for us as we talk to the college to know that that was part of the motion.
Then I will amend my motion to include a direction to the city manager to negotiate for shift of the ADA related cost from the city to Napa Valley College.
Thank you.
And do we have a second?
I'll amend my second.
And a roll call, please.
Okay. Councilor Hardy,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Chateau,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the focus and work on that. Okay, now we'll keep moving. We'll get to item 12.1. This is the 2021 City of St. Helena Pavement Management Program Report, and we have Mr. Wenger presenting this this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Cindy, if you could, thank you. You're ahead of me. I'm going to make this somewhat brief. This is being brought to you for your information, and it has a rollover effect with the next item on the agenda. But just in brief, for the last 20 some odd years, the city's been maintaining a pavement management program. And that is to spend money as wisely as possible for the 26 miles of roadway that the city currently owns and maintains. So the way we do that is by keeping up with the pavement management program. It's updated every few years, and it keeps on top of the pavement conditions as well as our expenditure plans. And through MTC's PTAP program, which is a grant program that occurs every couple of years, we were able to complete the most recent update, which was done by Harrison Associates at the end of March. And they helped put together this PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to briefly run through. So Cindy, if you can proceed to the next slide. So what is a pavement management program? It's meant as a inventory management, pavement condition tracking. It helps us determine funding alternatives, helps us make decisions based on the data provided, and it's needed to qualify for state and federally funded programs for any federal monies on our city streets. If you can go to the next slide. So this is a typical degradation curve, and you can see what happens. The bottom along the bottom axis is years, and along the y-axis on the left is basically a 0 to 100 scale. And if you envision this, when you pave a brand new street in year 0, you're at a pavement condition index of 100, which is excellent. And then over the course of years, what happens is that street typically degrades. And you get to about year 14 or 15, and you've got about 75% of the life left in the street. But after that, it quickly drops off. and we see the road degrade quickly. So the whole point of the pavement management program is to try to hit maintenance before you let the street degrade too quickly. And I will mention that this curve is actually embedded within the program that we use. So that's how we end up year to year beginning to see what's happening to our pavement. So if you can go to the next slide, Cindy. So the current network is involved or is comprised of arterial roads, collector roads, and residential roads. And you can see arterials are about 4%, collectors are about 41%, and residential is 54%. Next slide. And so what happens initially when you start with a pavement PMP update is you actually have field investigations that go out and look at every street. They look at a representative sample. And in that sample, they measure these 8 things that are shown: alligator cracking, block cracking, distortions, longitudinal and transverse cracking, raveling, weathering, rutting, and so on. So it's recorded for each street. You take that information, Cindy, if you can flip to the next slide, please, and you put it into the program. And what the program does is it looks at that degradation curve that you saw previously, and it rates the street. It comes out with a PCI, and streets that have a rating, it's kind of like a grade in school. If you have a rating of 90 to 100, it's in excellent conditions. 70 to 89 is very good. 50 to 69 is good. 25 to 49 is poor, and 0 to 24 is very poor or failed. Next slide, please. Currently, the city's mileage of streets, about 3.6 miles of streets are in excellent condition, 5.9 miles of street are in very good, 4.5 miles are in good, 4.2 are in poor, and 7.9 miles are in very poor. Next slide, please. So the way that breaks down, just so you can see it, is our arterial streets. The average arterial street has a PCI of 71, which is shown over on the right. For collector streets, the average PCI is 48, and the average residential street is a PCI of 50. So when you weight those in accordance with the number of each type of those streets within the whole system, we come out with a PCI of 50. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So what happens as part of the program is we input budgetary scenarios. And down on the bottom of this slide, you're going to see the red line, which assumes that we invest 0 monies in the streets every year. And what this shows is over the course of the next 5 years, we would go from an average PCI of 50 down to an average PCI of 41, which we would be in pretty poor condition. Then we looked at what it would take to maintain a PCI of 50, and that's the yellow line. That would take approximately 550,000 years of construction money spent every year. We actually picked, if we looked at a 5-point increase in the PCI, and that would take about 775,000, that's the green line. Our expected budget of actual construction costs is about 800,000 a year, so that's very close to the 5-point increase, which is good over the course of 5 years. And then if we went for an unlimited budget, we would be spending 2.2 million per year, and of course, you would go from a PCI of 50 to up to a PCI of 80 over the course of 5 years. So that gives the council kind of a flavor of when you put in certain amount of monies, what actually ends up happening to the conditions of your streets. If you can go to the next slide, please, Cindy. So the other thing that the program provides is what happens with deferred maintenance. And this is maintenance that if you don't keep up on your streets, they continue to degrade. And what happens is you need more and more money to maintain it. So same funding scenarios that we talked about. If we had an unlimited budget, we would go from the current $10 million worth of deferred maintenance down to $1 million in 5 years. If you looked at the expected budget, what we're looking at doing is actually decreasing deferred maintenance over 5 years from 10 million down to 9 million. And then you can also see the impacts of if we put in no funds, we'd increase deferred maintenance costs. So that's relatively the feel for what happens when you put in certain funds in the budget each year. Cindy, if you can go to the next slide. So what's recommended? First of all, the current budget that we put in there, the expected budget is about 800,000 to make a headway on the streets to improve the PCI approximately 5 points. That is a great start. Obviously, if Measure T monies, if we get more, we can actually be a little bit more aggressive and improve our streets a little bit more. But I did want to mention that 800,000 is the dollar amount that we assume that would actually go to construction. There's also design costs and construction management inspection costs that have to be accounted for, and we'll get into that in the next agenda item. But this is just a general overview. The other recommendation was obviously to keep up on the continued regular PMP updates. What happens is we update the collector streets every 2 years, and then we look at the entire city updating every 4 years. And what we just went through is the entire city update. So Cindy, I think that could be the last slide. Yep.
Thank you.
With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wenger. Are there any questions from council? We have a second item related to this that we'll move on to afterwards. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wenger. Really appreciate it. Very, very clear and very helpful. What does the additional survey cost? You said every 2 years and every 4 years we do residential. What are those amounts?
Yeah, I would have to look back at what the costs were for Harrison Associates, and actually that took place before I became city engineer. But I will tell you that I've done about 35 cities and 2 counties worth of PMP work, and I would guess that the updates range anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. And I will tell you that the PTAP program that MTC puts out typically covers the majority of those costs.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mr. Wenger, this is really great work, and we really appreciate your expertise on this. Are there any other council questions at this point before I open it for public comment? Seeing none, I'll go to public comment. I'll check in with Cindy to see if we have public comment.
There is no public comment.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it back to council. If there are no other council comments or questions at this point, I think we can we'll wrap up this and move to the next item that relates as well, and maybe some questions can be answered in there regarding the plan on the next item. So what we're looking for here is it's a receive and file. So in terms of direction for the city, we're just going to hear this file, and this is begins laying down the foundation for what I'm hoping is a process that we really stay on top of this management plan as we go forward. So with that, we'll move now to, I'm sorry, Councilmember Hall.
Hi, sorry, you referenced a management plan. Is that a street management plan or?
I'm sorry, the pavement management program. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
and then
okay.
and then coming up next is the CIP plan and overview of summer 2021 street maintenance projects. That's the next item.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So with that, any other, I'm seeing Vice Mayor Doring.
I'm just a little concerned that we're not going to be able to have a robust discussion on this item in 7 minutes. And I would request that we move it to our next city council meeting. I just don't think we're really going to get into enough detail, which I'd like to get into. But it's up, unless the manager thinks we can address this in 7 minutes. I don't know.
The only concern, I think we have scheduling conflict with the city engineer in 2 weeks. Is that right, on the 8th? Or okay, so we would need to continue it to the 22nd.
Would that slow us down in terms of any projects getting moved forward?
Yes, it would. We currently have our 7919, the second year of that is poised to go out to construction once the council here's this item, but that's at the council's discretion.
Is there a way to separate that one item and move forward on it without, I tend to concur with Vice Mayor Doring that this would take a little more focus to get through the whole list, but is there a way to separate that item to move it forward?
Mark, I don't know whether you would like to address that or not. I mean, my feeling is this is, there's a list that's provided on this next item, obviously, and we would be seeking direction from the city council for the 5-year list. Now, granted, the streets that are within the R7919 are contained. I mean, they're contained within the list that's considered in the next item. But I would imagine if the council provided staff with the direction, we could move forward with that. But it looks like there's some questions.
I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy and then Vice Mayor Doring.
Well, I'm starting to think a special meeting might really be the right way to do this so that we're not holding up the project, but we have the opportunity to discuss it thoroughly and discuss it when we're fresh.
Could we incorporate this as a special meeting with our budget session that's coming up? Or is that not enough time? Because we are talking about infrastructure. It is somewhat related, but we'd have to give proper notice. That would be the concern I have.
We could do that. And I didn't anticipate that we would need the full 3 hours for water and wastewater after speaking with our finance director about that. So I'm just looking for a nodding of the head from the finance director that we think we can squeeze in 30 minutes or a little more on this topic Thursday. And
yeah, oh, sorry. I think that would be appropriate, and the CIP budget is part of the current budget workshop, and so all 4 categories of CIP is included and has been noticed. I don't know if there's any other additional noticing requirements based on the specific street segments, and I'd defer that to Mark and John.
Ethan, do we need to continue this hearing or have a special hearing?
I don't believe this is a public hearing item, so you can continue this to a date certain, put it on the special meeting, and then just add it to the agenda, and we're within the 24 hours. It's for a special meeting, it's a 24-hour notice requirement. So we can do that.
And we're okay with not opening public comment this evening?
I think we should ask if there's public comment on the item. But since there's still people on the line, if they were waiting for this item, but
okay. Let me do that and just get that done, and then we'll come back and proceed. So I'll check in with Cindy to see if there is public comment.
There's no public comment.
Okay, seeing none. So I think that that's an astute recommendation, Mr. Vice Mayor Doring. So we approach this in a fresh way. It looks like we can do it. Mr. Wanger, that will work for you on
Yes, sir.
Thursday?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So with that, do we have enough direction, Mr. Prestwich?
Yes,
I think it would be appropriate just to make a motion to continue it to continue the items of the Thursday special meeting and take a vote on that.
So
I'll invite that motion.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Doring?
Yes.
Councilmember Hall?
Yep.
Hardy?
Yes.
Chateau?
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth?
Yes, thank you very much. And so before we adjourn, I think I neglected to say thank you to Mr. Prestwich for the work on the college transition to City Hall. I just want to make that note to put your name in that list of great thanks. So thank you. Let's, as a community, stay focused on our emergency prep and our water conservation, and Gold is the new green. Any other comments before we check out?
Have a
See
good night,
everybody
everybody.
God help us.
on Thursday. Thank you.